a bit that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Oops. Sorry about that. All right, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. If you are in locals, you got the crosstabs, social desirability bias. For the rest of you, I was trying to get a graphic to show you, but if you are on locals, you'll know what I'm saying here is absolutely true. Mm-hmm. It's so much data, you can't even see it. It's not legible. But what I nested, if you don't see it, refresh the crosstabs. They're interactive crosstabs. And on the variable to the right, which is for columns, go all the way to the bottom, and you'll see that I nested area, rural, suburban, urban, and region, all four census regions, right? Main census regions, by ideology and race. All right, so for nested, which is what I was trying to get a chart for, but it's so big, it's not even legible. All right, so check that out, and we're going to talk about that, all right? Because there are two things I want to make pretty clear. One is, outside of the strangers and the pollster indicators, the other ones, family, friends, started to get a little bit better this week and for those of you who know what I'm talking about, here, bear with me, because there are people probably who don't, all right? So we asked these questions. How comfortable are you telling each group of people about your political beliefs, such as how you intend to vote? What we're trying to get at is, how comfortable are you telling the truth to certain groups of people when it comes to your political beliefs? And how do you intend to vote? Where do you stand on issues? And with family and friends, it's possible, and I hypothesized that it was because we didn't have a whole lot of, there weren't third rail issues in this one, like transgenderism, for instance, transgender sports, which Americans oppose overwhelmingly, all right? And we asked many different ways: athletes, student athletes, scholarships, physical competition, right? We asked a slew of them, and all of them were overwhelmingly opposed. Only a tiny woke minority supports it. But in any event, we asked these people about this, and we asked them about different groups. Family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, strangers, and pollsters. And on some of the less controversial one, your family, your friend, you talk about your politics with, right? It got a little bit better this month, although I'm not sure if that's because we didn't ask third rail questions that badly, or it's because under the era of Joe Biden, all of a sudden now, people don't have Trump derangement syndrome, all right? Like, you're not being, your job is not threatened, so maybe you're more comfortable talking to coworkers. Joe Biden is president now, right? So now they're not crazy. Let's be real. Now certain people are not crazy anymore. And for those of you who say, oh, that's just no, it's not ridiculous. When Donald Trump won the election, I was up all night doing our coverage, all night in 2016. I go to take my daughter to school. We walk in, and the preschool, and the girls at the counter are hysterical. Like their husband cheated on them or something and took the dog.
Took the dog.
I mean, I was like, okay, turn around, sweetheart. We're going home. You're going to work with daddy today.
You do not need to see this.
You're going to work with daddy today. Laura worked for the public school systems at the time.
Oh, I thought somebody died in the school system.
When she walked in, she's like, what's going on? What's wrong? She's got an employee, a young African-American girl who thinks she's going to be deported back to Africa, hysterically crying. I mean, it was nuts. It was nuts. Can we get real for a second? So maybe people are a little bit more comfortable talking to their coworkers about their political beliefs because Joe Biden is president and no one's losing their anymore right now. All right, but maybe not. Maybe that's not what's going on. I don't know, because if you look at strangers and pollsters, and we're going to take a look at pollsters here in a second, it isn't any better. I mean, marginally maybe, but it's not. It's still roughly 4 in 10, just under, which is where we found it. It was always at least 3 in 10, depending on the battleground state before the election. It was always 3 in 10 were uncomfortable talking about their political beliefs, telling you the truth. And it got even above 4 in 10, and when we're doing some of these national pollings, it generally stays around 4 in 10. It, look, a little bit. So what are we at? Like 36% combined this year? You know what? Let's take a look at it. All right. So for those of you who have it, open ear up. Okay. All right. So pollsters, we have about 20% somewhat uncomfortable, 19.1, and we have 18.2 who are very uncomfortable. So 37.3%. Still just under that 4 in 10, but I mean, rounded up 4 in 10. All right. And this is why I say this is the most important research anybody is conducting right now. I'm not doing that to toot either our horns, because this is an our project. This isn't a my. This is an our. You pay for this. This is the most important research, survey research anybody right now can be doing. I get the A-port invites all the time, which I'm done trying to be nice. I'm done. I'm just done trying to be nice with everybody. It is what it is. They didn't extend professional courtesy to me, so nobody's getting professional courtesy back, all right? You want to smear me? Then whatever. Bottom line is, their cheesy little webinars aren't getting to the crux of anything. How to correct for mistakes in big data. That's the new one this week. How the hell would you know? How the hell would you know? You still haven't corrected them. In fact, they got worse this time. The polling misses this time, folks, were way worse than 16, even though Joe Biden is president. There are maybe 2 pollsters, maybe 3, who showed this to be a competitive race. It doesn't really matter whether, this one over here had Trump a little bit ahead in his state. He lost by 6,000 votes. Like, it was a competitive election. The media favorite pollsters, the university pollsters, the big corporate media pollsters, they blew this thing wide open. Langer Research, Biden plus 17 in Wisconsin. Every poll in the New York Times was at least a 7 to 9, depending on what state, bias in favor of Joe Biden. That's outside the sampling era. You can have a mistake here and there, like Wisconsin, Trump plus 1. Like one of our friendly competitors did. He showed a competitive race. That state was razor thin. That's more accurate than Biden plus 17, even though the Electoral College votes ultimately, officially, went to Joe Biden. All right. So how would they know how to correct for anything? Look at again, because I think we're starting to see a pattern here with numerous groups. And go to that nesting I told you about before, by area, region, race, and ideology. You will notice it isn't just whites. It isn't just white working class. Yes, it is. I mean, it's true. We could do it by education. I'll show you. But it's more than that. That's why I nested it like this, and I didn't nest education. Look at the rural comfort levels among moderates and conservatives. So when we poll and we get an approval rating that's 51% for Joe Biden this time, but had been as high as 56, and I showed you when it was 56, the last social desirability bias indicators, you could see that it is very clear that liberals in rural America are much more comfortable talking their beliefs, and they disproportionately still, even in rural America, want to participate in surveys more than everyone else. So when we see these margins, in rural America, like for instance, our polling in Florida was dead on, but Trump was a little bit underestimated. That's where that other half a point came from. Half a point. That was the panhandle. If you look, it was not close, obviously, in the panhandle. But we definitely underestimated Trump there. What's going on there, right? Look at these indicators. That's why Republican margins in rural America are not as big as they are on Election Day. That's why. Liberals are much more likely to give you their opinion. Conservatives are much more likely to either not pick up the phone. Even moderates who lean to the right, who end up voting for the Republican candidate, who did end up voting for Donald Trump. Those people are not likely to tell you their opinion as likely. They'll give you an undecided. They'll be those stubborn undecideds. They may even lie to you. They may even lie. Excuse me. So go ahead and look at it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to pull some up here. All right. All right. So there is literally nobody in the Northeast who's liberal and white who told us they were very uncomfortable telling us their political beliefs to pollsters. And when I say nobody, I mean statistically, almost nobody. That compares to 13.5% of moderates and a third of conservatives. A third. That's white in the Northeast. Mm-hmm. So when Joe Biden's approval rating sits at 51% in this poll, because the Northeast is the only place he's really above water, and I mean significantly above water, you guys saw 60%. Is it really 60%, or are these same people who tell us they're uncomfortable also telling us either they're undecided or they somewhat approve? Because his somewhat approve is bloated. His intensity index is negative. All right? And for those the conservative Hispanic in the Northeast is statistically nothing. So I'm not going to show, some columns I won't show you. The zeros and the ones. I mean, they're. I don't want you to read too much into it. Yeah, so I don't want you to be misled. But look at even Hispanics in the Northeast. Moderates, 32%. Liberal, only 15%. This is by the way, very uncomfortable. Look at African Americans. Conservative African Americans, 61% of them in the Northeast are somewhat uncomfortable. 61%. Moderates 30%, but liberals 6.6%. Literally a factor of more than 10 between liberal and conservative. Almost 10. I'm saying almost more than 10. If you think this doesn't have an impact on the overall result of a survey, you're crazy. This is a statistician's worst nightmare. Almost 4 in 10 people taking a survey are telling us they're not comfortable telling us the truth. That is a nightmare. Nightmare. How do you account for that in big data? You don't. You want the truth from a pollster? You don't. Not without manipulation, which we won't do. So that's how you get those, Maybe Trump is exceptionally strong in Miami-Dade and Florida, and I'm using Florida polling because I was just looking at it to review some of how this might have impacted our statewide polling. In the end, we weren't wrong in Miami-Dade. We underestimated Trump by a few points in Miami-Dade, but we absolutely saw him hit that shift there. Where this is coming up are minorities. Like Robert and I have said before, the Ann Coulters of the world are going to steer the Republican Party into a ditch. There aren't enough white working people to win an electoral college victory. They are overrepresented in the electoral college, but that is not what kept Texas on Trump's side. That's not what kept North Carolina on Trump's side. That's not what kept Arizona, I would argue. That's not what kept Arizona competitive. Arizona should be a D+6 state right now. Let me just put it like that. With the amount of migration and immigration, that should be in the political class, the professional class that are moving to the Phoenix metro area, that should be a D state right now. It is not, even though at the presidential level it is not, even though the Republicans have lost, well, McSally lost both Senate races in that state in the last 2 cycles. They no longer have a seat in the U.S. Senate in Arizona. That's bad campaigning. But that moderate working class vote that Trump stomped Biden by 30 points in that state, 30 points, our polling showed that. They were even with Kelly and McSally. My point is, Trump got these minorities that will not tell you, or that they're comfortable. They're not comfortable telling you who they're going to vote. But it's very clear by the results. Zapata County. Okay? Robert and I keep bringing this up because 4 years ago or 8 years ago, you would never, no way support in El Paso. No way. No, somebody would have called you crazy. Well, I project Trump will carry Zapata County this time. Yeah, all right. You're nuts. That's what you would have heard. All right. So, Pinellas, supposed to be Trump +8. Biden +8 in Pinellas. It was going to be the next Hillsborough County. 500,000 votes. They're separated by 200 votes. How did that happen? Not only white working class. All right, speaking of which, let's go to those regions. Let's go to the area of the country where there was this, oh my God, oh no, again. Not again. Remember that on election night? Oh no, not again. Right? Conservative black African Americans in the Midwest. Half of them very uncomfortable. Another, just about it, so 48.4%. And another almost third, 31.2%, somewhat uncomfortable. So basically, 8 and 10. 8 and 10 conservative black African American voters in the Midwest are a polling blunder waiting to happen. They're a polling catastrophe in the making. This was the biggest screw up, folks, since Truman Dewey. They want to brush it on, they want to sweep it under the rug again, like they did in 18. The Senate polling in 18 and the gubernatorial polling in 18 was egregious. It was not close. So you barely got the House vote correctly, which they didn't really. They overestimated Democrats. The LA Times polling changed their methodology post 2016, and they overestimated the Democratic House vote by 7 points. They overestimated Joe Biden again. They had what? Their final was like Biden +13 or something ridiculous. That is not calling a national vote correctly. Forget about state level polling. Joe Donnelly +7. That's a 13 point miss by Fox News. Claire McCaskill +3 or tied with Josh Hawley. You're kidding me, right? Josh Hawley comfortably defeated her, an incumbent. Mike DeWine didn't lead not a single major media poll in the final stretch. NBC Marist had him ahead barely in the summer. And I think it was July or something, until they herded with everybody else. Richard Cordray was going to win that race. They grossly overestimated Sherrod Brown, who did hold his seat in Ohio, but barely. And had Josh Mandel stayed in that race in 18, he'd be the senator from Ohio right now. But he's going to have to cede that to J.D. Vance now. Because I just think Vance has the mood. Looking at our polling, Vance has the mood of the electorate with him. All right. Again, I mean, I could just keep going on and on and on here.
Sorry, I was looking.
Gary Peters was supposed to spank John James. That didn't happen. Gary Peters was biting his fingers for 72 hours. Hoping, that was me, I think.
That was you all day?
Yeah, it was. You want to kill it for me? Thank you. Hoping those mail-in votes kept trickling. So this, like, the handwriting was on the wall here, folks. And they want to sweep it because Biden won, or, you know, if Biden is the president.
There you go. That's more like it.
And they want to use it, you know, well, we got the outcome right and swept it on the rug. Well, no, you didn't.
Sorry.
Was Texas blue or not on your map? Was North Carolina blue or not on your map? Was Florida blue or not? This was supposed to be an electoral college margin greater than Barack Obama's over John McCain, folks. That was the bloodbath we were supposed to be in for.
Remember Blue Wave?
That didn't happen.
Yeah, no. That's
They lost House seats. You know, like I said, Joe Biden is president. I'll say that. And with the exception of Georgia, which happened weeks later because of how Republicans handled the election situation, they fought off basically every major challenge in the Senate. Had Perdue and Loeffler won those races, had they had the courage of their supposed convictions, they would have won them, but they didn't. Because both of them were corrupt. Doesn't matter if it's Georgia or Alabama. You put up a corrupt candidate, you're probably going to lose that race. Red state voters don't ignore that like blue state voters do. Richard Blumenthal. All right. Back to the Midwest here. Conservative Hispanics, more than a quarter of them, uncomfortable. Even moderates. By the way, black African American moderates, over 4 in 10 in the Midwest. Somewhat uncomfortable, almost 30. About 12.3, very uncomfortable. All right. And then, you know, the white vote is what it is. I mean, we know this, right? So you have this 30% white group that are like woke. And they're very comfortable, you know, but then you have moderates and conservatives who are not, right? So somewhat uncomfortable alone, liberals are 3 times less likely. More than 3 times. Excuse me here, I'm getting hiccups or something. More repeating, I mean. So liberals, 8%. Conservatives, 27. Moderates, 32, actually, in the Midwest. So even more so. All right. Interestingly, by the way, I'm reading you right now urban voters too. If you look at this by, you know what, I'm gonna break this down by the suburbs. Okay, give me 1 second. You guys can do it. You can just scroll with it. All right. I'm gonna get rid of rural America, and I'm just gonna do the suburbs. Please just come up. It's like there's so many people looking at it. It takes forever. It spins. Okay. Let's go to the Midwest in the burbs. All right. Whites, 24% somewhat, 17% very. Moderates, and the conservatives. Moderate, 21%. Somewhat, another 20. Very. That's, again, even liberals. There's one group here, white liberals in the suburbs, who are uncomfortable talking about it. And we found that kind of funny considering some of the suburban polling was way off the mark. And we did see in places like Wisconsin, that suburb phenomena was not happening. In Ohio, it wasn't happening. Like Trump was doing well there. It just didn't, you know. but it wasn't jiving with the rest of the country like we'd see with the Dallas-Fort Worth area, for instance, or Phoenix, or Atlanta. All right. By the way, Trump did better than David Perdue in the Atlanta metro area. I'm going to say this again. People are like, is that true? Yes, it's true. All right. Okay. Even Asians, 44%, are uncomfortable. Asian moderates, 75%. These are suburbs, by the way, in the Midwest. Let's move over to the South, right? Which is obviously, that's a Republican bastion, right? And yet still, Hispanics, I thought you were calling me. I'm sorry.
No.
17.3% of Hispanic conservatives, very uncomfortable. Again, African Americans, 40% in the South, very uncomfortable. And then whites are about 32.4% uncomfortable in some respect, all right? And again, much more very. Liberals, only 9% versus conservatives, 14%. Even moderates, 20%. Liberals, 12% versus 23%. All right, so... you're gonna see some offsetting there, but jumping right out at me are like, where are these people, right? Mm-hmm. And mostly it's in rural. I mean, the rural areas are real bad because that will really throw off your margin in a poll, because a lot of pollsters will weight by area. They will, and that will kill you if you're not getting a representative sample of each area telling you at least a ballpark truth. All right, and we have black African Americans, 20%, somewhat uncomfortable, moderates, and every single conservative in the West that lives in the suburb is uncomfortable. I mean, it's incredible. All right, say? I mean, what does that say? How on earth can you get how can you hope to get an accurate assessment of anything if the disparities between certain groups are so grave? Because it's not that, the urban centers are doing the same. No, they're not. They're very happy to take surveys. Some, of course, there are going to be people who are uncomfortable. Like I just talked about the liberal urbanites in the South. But it isn't enough, not even close to enough, to balance out what's going on here. If it was, then maybe we'd see some weird numbers in one place and some weird numbers in the other, and somehow it all just worked together. In the end, it all worked. That's not happening. All right, so, and with that, I think I want to take maybe we'll take a little early break. You guys go get a cup of coffee, do what you got to do, and start asking your questions now. Mm-hmm. And... we'll try to get to them a little bit before, like we're gonna have Don on a couple show things next week. We're gonna have on Matt Brainerd to talk about some of this. Look, I like to stick to my numbers, but there are obviously some issues where you see me voice my opinion. This persecution of these people, persecution, period. That's a problem, period. But these people who remain in these inhumane conditions because of their participation of January 6th of some degree, which apparently looks like entrapment. Mm-hmm. Solitary confinement to the point where even a lefty like Elizabeth Warren has to come out and say, what the hell is going on here? And the media has forgotten about these Americans, or they don't even care.
True story.
And we're going to talk about this more with Matt next week. But we're going to be bringing it up a little until something changes here. Yeah, it is not okay to keep someone's grandma and grandpa in jail indefinitely because of... Look, I said this on Twitter. It went a little bit nuts. Some people didn't like it. That's just tough. If you are still calling January 6th an insurrection, you are not a serious person. You're not a serious person. You regurgitate whatever you were told from other unserious, people, non-thinkers. All right? There isn't a single person charged with insurrection or a related crime. An appropriate crime, an appropriate statute to deal with somebody who tries to carry out an insurrection. They are charged with stupid, petty crap that nobody basically was charged with when Donald Trump was inaugurated and DC actually did burn. Okay? There were actual cars tipped upside down and lit on fire. There were actual mobs all over the city all day long. It wasn't like a singular event. It was rioting on January 6th. I would say that's fair. Nobody let the police didn't let the March for Life. I mean, the March for the Women's March or whatever. They didn't let them into the Capitol in 16 or 17. We took the oath in 17. Sorry. There's very different situations here. Nobody is charged with anything that is appropriate to the rhetoric you hear in the media. Some of these people have never been in trouble in their life. They simply attended the event, and when the Capitol Police let them in, they were trespassing is what that's what they're guilty of.
Yes. Worst case.
Even if you believe that they shouldn't have been in the building, folks, they got in the building somehow. They didn't tear the door off the building, which you cannot do. Obviously, if you've never been to the Capitol, then it's very easy for you to be duped by the media reports. You're not tearing those doors off, people. They're like, what are they? They're bolts, magnetics, right? There's all sorts of crap on there. They were let in. Anyway, even if they did, we don't treat people like this in this country. Or we're not supposed to. You're not held indefinitely. You're not reserved. Your punishment for this is not the same as those reserved for the worst of our society who commit heinous crimes like murders and rapes and solitary confinement. Humans are social creatures, which is why the lockdown was incredibly stupid and has caused significant mental health. Significant mental health issues. That's why domestic abuse hotlines were blowing up in Florida. That's and Governor DeSantis said, you know what? No, we're not doing this.
What about the children's suicide
rates? Yeah.
Horrible.
And
tragic.
The bottom line is, we're social creatures. And we cannot be sane for long if put in conditions like this. I don't really care what they did. Frankly, I don't really care what nothing I have seen or alleged warrants this kind of treatment. Nothing. Especially when the FBI did nothing apparently to prevent it. And in fact, did the Hoover nudge. That's what it looks like. The role of the FBI really needs to be examined. Let me tell you. If you think they can persecute a sitting president and not you, you're crazy. That's what was always so wrong about collusion. That was always the big picture that people couldn't wrap their minds around. If they can do this to a national security advisor, if they can do this to a sitting president, if they can do this to people who are, carrying out a duly elected president's agenda, then they can do it to just Susie Q and John and Jane Doe. You're nothing. They'll steamroll you.
All willy-nilly.
They'll steamroll you.
Not care.
The left used to care about this. I don't know where the hell they are now. They used to care about it. They don't anymore. Maybe they never did.
Could have been.
Where are the old school Alan Dershowitzes? How come Alan Dershowitz and the likes of Alan and, sometimes Turley, why are they all alone? For any of you who spent time in academia, maybe it's changed this much. I don't know. But 20 years ago, this is what they were worried about. This is what they were worried about. How could you blindly trust the FBI? How could you blindly trust the CIA? How could you blindly trust the military like General Milley, who is on Twitter today because Tucker took a shot at him? This is my... General Milley is not concerned, the Joint Chief. He is not concerned with Americans being persecuted for their political beliefs. He is not concerned with why people who are essentially charged with trespassing are being held in solitary confinement. He doesn't give a damn about any of that. Mr. Well-Read, he sounded like Alexander Hamilton when he really was in his monarchist days. All right? These rights are really only reserved for the rich and well-born. Boy, he sounded just like him. Hamilton in his later era, before Burr put a bullet in his chest. All right? I'm serious.
It's true.
I am well-read, you know. West Point is an education institute, after all. Yeah, we know what West Point is. They educate you crooks to start wars you can't finish.
Destroy other countries.
To destroy other countries, to maim, murder, lie to the American people about it, lie to the American people to get in those conflicts. We all know what you do at West Point, General. What you apparently don't do is educate yourself as much as you think you are.
I knew you were going here.
Of course I'm gonna do this. Look, stop pretending like you're so... I've read Mao Zedong. What the hell did he say? You can't even say his name correctly. Then stop pretending you're so super smart and you're smarter than everybody else. It's Mao Zedong, idiot.
Well,
it's not even a Z. All right, in Chinese, it's not even a Z. It's a TSU sound. All right, but whatever. I digress. I'm not gonna have Mandarin classes on Inside the Numbers today.
Come on, the only name that needs to get right is Kamala.
So I know, right?
God forbid.
God forbid you pronounce her name wrong, but you can be well-read and get this guy. All right. Anyway, the bottom line is, do you think his counterpart in Beijing and China give a damn about these things, Mr. Woke? You know? And everyone's having canary because Tucker said he's not brave. He's not brave. Brave would be resisting this nonsense. They teach you, the brass at West Point, to kiss. That's what they teach you to do. And everybody knows it. Every enlisted guy who has served, you know what I'm talking about. Guys and girls, you know, enlisted. Come on, man, let me hear you. These people kiss butt for promotions, for glory, and so their friends can get defense contracts. They're not people to worship, praise. They're not. They'll lie to you over and over, man. The Gulf of Tonkin. WMDs. Give me this crap. Everybody's General Patton all of a sudden? Everyone's Douglas MacArthur? These guys couldn't hold a candle to those men. They can't even beat the Taliban. Are you kidding? Maybe we shouldn't have wanted them to beat the Taliban. Maybe there wouldn't be so many illicit drugs in this country. Tell me, General, how is it when you entered Afghanistan, only 180 metric tons of opium were exported from that country, and now it's 7,000 and change as of the last opium survey from the United Nations? What exactly are you doing, General? I mean, I don't know where this like crazy idealistic version of these people like that people have created in the minds. These are the same people who packed the coffins of dead soldiers with heroin to import them into the country. Frank stuffs a couple bills in your pocket and you'll desecrate the dead. Kidding? I'm not going to bow to this, whatever this is. Tucker's right. A man or a woman of courage, anyone, doesn't matter what your gender is, They don't move with the flow of times because they don't change their opinion every time the wind blows. You want to understand white rage. Are you out of your mind? Do you understand the enemy? Why don't you understand the enemy? That's your job. You're concerned about white rage. Be concerned about Beijing kicking your in a one-on-one. In total war, they would whoop us at this point.
Yeah, well,
why don't you concern yourself with that? My God. Concern yourself with the carrier killer, General. That's how you project power across the stopping power of water. Concern yourself with the new Russian subs. My God. Tomorrow he'll be talking about giving Iran billions. What a great idea that is. I'm serious. These people move whatever. They're whatever you need them to be. You know this. They're just as long as you keep the money coming. Keep the money flowing to their friends in Bel Air.
And they're your BFFs.
And Northern Virginia. And they are your BFFs. God forbid you try to take their war away, and they'll try to destroy you. And they never run off and do it. They never do it themselves. Concerned about white rage. Concern yourself about the U.S. not winning a decisive war in like decades. Concern yourself with the intelligence that says a third of all Chinese students could very well be spies. Like, that's your job. Concern yourself with the carrier killers. That's your job. And I'm telling you guys, you know what? Remind me next week to upload some of these documents, at least show pictures. You got to see what these people are discussing. What they're discussing and telling their troops. And what they're batting around. It's anti-white. I told you this. You read these documents. It has nothing to do with getting whites to, understand their role in a racist society. It's worse than that. It's much, much worse. It is anti-white. This general is literally participating in what could end up being a witch hunt against his own race. We're in dangerous territory here. All violence from groups like BLM and Antifa are justified. They don't refer to the former president as the president ever. They refer to him as Donald J. Trump or Mr. Trump. It is a blatant disrespect. And violence conducted on behalf of those groups on white conservatives is completely justified. Because the line between fascism and just, anything anti-government is blurred. And it doesn't, I'll tell you what, for those of you on the left who love this persecution stuff, if you at all are somebody who questions the government or questions authority, they'll throw you in this bag too. There are all sorts of people that you would consider lefties named in the groups.
Because they're not extreme enough.
They're socialists. They're socialists. They're just socialists who have the current anti-government sentiment. So they're lumped in there with right-wing extremists. There's nothing right-wing about them. American right-wing doesn't advocate for government control of anything. Those groups do. Nazism, by the way, I hate to go down the history lesson path today, but Nazism was only dubbed right-wing because FDR and later Truman had to hang with Uncle Joe, man, to defeat Hitler. And they didn't want you guys connecting Nazism with communism at all. And they did hate each other, but in fact, they're both what? Breeds of socialism. One was more of obviously Marxist. The other one was fascist. But they nevertheless believed in government control of production of goods, government control over industry. The only difference between Hitler's fascism and because they both had racial elements. Stalin purged based on race. Communists purged based on race all the time. The only Ukrainians, for crying out loud, folks. Armenian genocide. That ideology purges based on race. and creed and religion. That doesn't separate them from Hitler. Hitler and Nazism just believed that we could have like puppet corporate heads, but they did what the government told them to anyway. So and so is the head of this company. He has the warehouses. They build this kind of metal that we use to build tanks. He's not really in charge. The Nazi Party is in charge. And as long as you're a member of the Nazi Party, they'll leave you alone if you do what they say. In communism, the government is totally in control and there's no facade. They're economic definitions, folks. But revisionist historians and the media, they have a way of obfuscating the political with the economic. And they absolutely favor giving you political definitions over economic ones and what they mean for your life, your prosperity, your liberty, your commerce. They do that because they don't want to tell you what it means for your pocket. They don't want to tell you what it means for your ownership of private property or your coerced obedience. But they needed Uncle Joe. So Uncle Joe couldn't be aligned with the right. He had to be a lefty. Or, Hitler couldn't be a lefty. Because then whoa, wait a minute. So you're saying they're both on the same side of the spectrum here. What are we doing? No, they couldn't do that. They needed Uncle Joe Stalin. Uncle. So they told you a fib. What a surprise.
That early break, though. That was a good break.
Well, it is. It's 11:46. We're going to take it right now. When we come back, we're going to answer some questions, and then we're going to bring on Don. We'll answer some more questions. Mm-hmm. All right? All right. We'll be back in about a minute and a half, let's say. What say you? Minute and a half? All right. Don't forget to watch Locals Community. Keep an eye out for, there was a lot of requests in North Carolina. We'll do that, right? If you want to join the Locals Community so you can get these voter analysis and participate in the surveys, you can do so by going to peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. Community members will be getting that shortly. Also, you like the video, hit the like button. Hit the thumbs up. It's all very important. If you like these videos, don't forget to subscribe. You can do so by subscribing on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we go live. The link URL has changed. It is now just People's Pundit. It isn't People's Pundit Daily. That is because we are transitioning to People's Pundit TV. Mm-hmm. People's Pundit TV. It's going to be cool. All right. Laura's idea. It's a better one. All right. So with that,
as usual. What?
Let's take a break. Still follow me on Twitter at peoples_pundit for this time being.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
It's good stuff. All right, and special thanks to the Bowen Band, as always, for Bowen, just Bowen. Sorry, for the theme songs. Not just a bad habit for Inside the Numbers, but they also do Highway for What Are the Odds. All right, so always a special thanks for that. Laura is taking a quick coffee break, and when she returns, we will get to your questions. All right. But yeah, next week we're gonna have kind of a big week here, folks. We'll have Matt on. We'll have one of the the only declared candidate in, well, not forms declared. I'm not sure they're there yet, but in the Great Silver State, which will go hand in hand with the voter analysis that we did, which I thought you guys would want to hear about that. My apologies for neglecting that state, or not even neglecting, just, I didn't think it would be that close. I really didn't. And, everything that Democrats wanted to weaken election reform, that was the state where they got the most of it. So they got around the ban on ballot harvesting, which Americans want. They support bans on ballot harvesting by a little more than 60%. All right. Do we have that? I don't know if I got that graphic. I mean, I got it on my thing. I could upload it. Maybe I'll do that when we have Don on. But let's see. But you know what we do have, which I could show you right now, is why it's so important. And I want to talk to this candidate because as we went over in, sure, yeah. Yeah, can you throw me a question? Can you do that? Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't mind if you go, yeah. But in any event, he hails from a very important area of the state. And I think that if the state is going to be competitive, or if Republicans think they have a chance to win, they have to give special attention to that area of the state. All right? They have to arrest the trends. They have to think outside the box. All right? So we'll have a candidate on. We'll have Matt on. We'll have a lot of things going on for next week. But now I will shut up and let Laura ask the question.
All right. Let's see.
Hold on. Let me figure it so they can hear you.
Yes,
Right.
Sam Josh would like to know, is there any significance to the fact that about 19.6% black people are generally uncomfortable sharing political beliefs with their family compared to 15.8% white people?
Yeah, and you know what? We actually broke that down. That's a good question. We actually broke that down too by age, which I'll show you if you want. Maybe we could do that on the next Zoom where you can see, and I don't have to, put it up. But you guys can actually, you know what? I'll add that to the crosstab. I'll nest that, and you'll see that younger black voters are not as loyal to the Democratic Party at all. 45 and below is generally that cutoff where we start to see weakening party loyalties, but they don't want to talk to their families about it. And we have some locals community members who fall into that category. We interviewed a kid, not a kid, he was a grown man. I mean, just a young guy in his 20s, late 20s. To me, that's a kid now, I guess. I'm dating myself. But he wasn't a kid. He was a grown man, and in North Carolina. And he voted for Donald Trump, but he couldn't tell his family about it. And I think that you'll see that bigger disparity with younger people when, generally speaking, not just this survey, but in the totality of the work. Because there is noise from month to month. There's different statistical noise, but generally we see trends over time, and we see patterns over time. And younger African Americans are more likely to say they're uncomfortable than older African Americans, okay? Especially if they're moderate or conservative. They generally just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to be screamed at by the grandmother or the mother. They just who have long-standing ties to the Democratic Party, and they take crap for it. And we can actually measure it. It's incredible. It's a good question. There is a significance. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. Because you'll see a lot of them. They're not just in urban centers, in the suburbs, in rural America. You'll see them in those surveys with their discomfort. And then, later after an election or something, you'll say, wait, how did so-and-so get this much of the vote in this county? We were polling it at this percentage. Yeah, it's rain. And basically, so it would have been a perfect time for a seed.
All right.
But anyway, yeah. And you can almost take that percentage that they represented the electorate and add it to the margin, and you're like, okay, that's at least some of it. Where else is it coming from? Okay, white suburban women, maybe they did this here, maybe that adds to the total margin. I mean, you can actually over time, you start to really see it. This is what is causing this disparity between what's projected and what's actually happening on vote day, right? On election day, in the vote. All right, what's next?
All right, let's see. see. Jimmy Palms, Freewheeling Friday question. What about the Florida and Texas GOP has resonated so well with Hispanic voters?
Yeah.
Can it be replicated in other states?
It can, but it's going to take two things. One, I think it's important because, especially in Florida, they're not like the national GOP. There's so many things they don't listen to them on. Everything from certain issues about taxation to healthcare to the environment in Florida, I'm saying. And they have had a presence with these communities for so long. Texas has been doing this too for a long time. Southern Texas, obviously we see some heavily Hispanic areas that do vote Democratic. But, we have these other areas like El Paso and Zapata where they took a turn. I think that's two things. The message, but also relationships paying off. And the National Republican Party and in other states, they have not been good at that. In Arizona, they have not been good at that. In Clark County, they have not been good at that. That just started with Donald Trump and Trump's campaign. Mitt Romney didn't do a damn thing to reach out to these people. George W. Bush in that state, in the Silver State, he's to blame for their economic problems. Literally. Now we have people that have grown up. They were once children of those households. They remember their families losing their home. They remember their mother and father losing their job. Who did it happen under? So they have been, unlike Florida and Texas, the party generally has been trying to max the white vote. They've been trying to max out the white vote, which is a losing strategy. I'm not saying don't try to max out the white vote. Do. Whatever. If you're a Republican, do try to max out the white vote. But why on earth would you just isolate everybody else? Because whites alone would not have kept several of these states for you. If Trump didn't do that much better among black men in North Carolina, it would have been closer. The difference between Tillis and Trump was the white professional class. They're the ones who, don't like angry tweets. They don't care about inflation. They don't like it. Forget about it. Who cares? Inflation is literally the highest in 40 years. Whatever. At least we don't have angry tweets anymore. Super educated you all are. All right.
I love you. I knew I married you for a reason.
I mean, it's just, because part of it is, I had a friend / he's a donor, a political donor, but he's also a friend. And he told me something so profound years ago under Donald Trump. And he was basically like, they can afford, the people in my neighborhood can afford to care about angry tweets because they don't have to live with the consequences yet. So in so many of these policies that they pursue and prefer, they're not the ones who have to take the brunt of this. They don't see what immigration does to their school. They don't see what it does to their neighborhood. They don't see what crime is doing to their neighborhood, right? They don't see any of this. They can handle inflation. When your paycheck doesn't get any higher, maybe you bring in $400 a week, it doesn't get any higher. But the cost of lumber does, and the cost of milk does, and the cost of this and that, and education for your kids, right? I mean, so they need to be, and that was literally a policy he advocated for, which is that we really have to make them suffer as other people suffer. Not that you're personally hurting them, you're not giving them the privileges and the advantages that other people don't have, so they have to live in the same boat, I don't know how you do that without coercion, but which I'm not a big fan of, but I get it. I get what he's saying. All right, yeah.
So
but yes, the short answer is it can be duplicated. It's just not with these people, okay? They gotta go.
The short answer comes after the 10-minute long answer. But I love you.
Yeah, me.
I love you.
Come on now.
Long time for free.
For free, no charging.
Lamb Crow. Oh, here it is again. How much of the Trump working class turnout, Erie and the T of PA?
I know what he's talking about. Yeah.
Okay. The driftless in Wisconsin, would DeSantis lose, and how many Romney-Clinton voters could he regain?
So I'm not a big... There is going to be a share of the white vote who would probably vote, you know, and he pointed to some good areas. You know, I'm thinking voters in Burke, you know, not Bucks, because Trump did actually really well on Bucks this time around. He didn't slip at all. But let's just generally see the southeastern part of Pennsylvania that would, like a Ron DeSantis, probably a little more than Donald Trump. I'm just not sure it would be enough if you abandon the other coalition. You just can't do it. The trade-off isn't there. You'll end up like Mitt Romney again, and then you'll lose states like Ohio. I'm not saying Ron DeSantis will do that. Ron DeSantis could actually be that candidate who does both. I do know people, let me just tell you, personally, I know people in Florida who love him, but we're not fans of Donald Trump. All right, so Donald Trump did excellent. That's a state he did incredible in. And yet I personally know people like that, and plus I see them in polling all the time. They tell us they approve strongly of the job Ron DeSantis is doing, but they didn't vote for Donald Trump. So I think that question is unknown at this point. What kind of a candidate would he be? I think that's unknown at this point. But he does remind me, even though he comes from a totally different part of the country, he does remind me of like a Scott Walker kind of candidate. George Will's wife destroyed Scott Walker's campaign. All right. She even gave him that stupid little line, "We don't need an apprentice in the White House" or something. Do you remember that? And it was over for him.
And he didn't want to say it.
He didn't want to. You could see it. But you know what, Laura? You don't listen. You stay true to yourself. Mm-hmm. He knew damn well why Donald Trump was appealing to the Republican base. This is the thing that pissed me off so badly about Scott Walker in 2016. He knew exactly what it was that made Donald Trump popular with the base. And he was just so nice about it. Mm-hmm. He's just so Wisconsin nice about it, right? But he knows that Republicans are frauds. Mm-hmm. All right? Scott, Governor, come on. Let's be real for a second. You were popular in your state, and you know this. And you were able to win in this state when nobody else could. And you know this because Republicans are frauds who don't deliver. You delivered, you got rewarded. Keep beating a child every day. As that child grows up, eventually he's going to get stronger to beat you back. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Republican base did in 2016. And they used Donald Trump as their tool. So he knew it. And yet he still went along with what that idiot told him to say. That was the worst law. Like, you know why it was so bad? Because they created it. They thought it would be like so creative, and it was so indicative of their mindset and how ancient it was and how disconnected it was. Nobody cares about your cute little quips. Nobody gives a damn. When they're being persecuted, their wages aren't growing. They're being lied to about wars. They're crashing economies. Who gives a damn about your cute little quibs? Nobody cared. He went from being what I thought, honestly, was the front runner to just gone before a vote was counted.
And we liked him.
He's a very nice guy. The truth is, Scott Walker's a very nice guy. And he was one of those guys, like I see DeSantis, and I don't think DeSantis will ever fall into that trap, but when we were, remember the polling, Laura, and it was like, he was winning the Iowa caucuses, and he was also winning New Hampshire, which is like impossible, right? You always get these dueling, Ted Cruz versus Donald Trump, and Donald Trump does considerably better in the Iowa caucus than people gave him credit for. But in any event, Cruz does eke it out, right? And then New Hampshire, Donald Trump clobbers him, and then whoever wins New Hampshire usually goes on to win South Carolina, because South Carolina, by the way, is much closer to New Hampshire ideologically than it is Iowa. I know that sounds crazy. It's like, oh, it's the South. It's conservative. South Carolina Republicans in Horry County don't look anything like Iowa Republicans in Western Iowa. It's just not true. They look and share more of the views, more, I don't even know if moderate is the right word. It was moderate under Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the moderate candidate for a while. And then he just started to, when South Carolina came, it was over. They just didn't admit it. Because he won every county in South Carolina, and that showed that he appealed to the very conservatives who live upstate, you know, and he also appealed to the moderates who live in Horry County. They're like the golf-playing sweater club Republicans. All right, he won every single county. He won it easily. Very, very easily. Same thing when it comes to like Michigan. I mean, it was over before they really just didn't admit it. Oakland County. I mean, that's an area he's supposed to lose. Oakland has trended very, very stiff upper lip. All right, so I do see Ron DeSantis as, I don't think we know the answer to that yet, because if you would have asked somebody about somebody similar, like Scott Walker, this far out, it would be a very different picture. A couple years, a long, 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 long time in politics, and I see, honestly, there's going to be a group of Republicans, and I told you guys this. I know many Republicans are just dying for Trump to run again, but there are a lot of people who think it's time to move on. And Ron DeSantis is going to appeal to those people if he runs. Now, I will say this. It's all a fruitless hypothetical if Donald Trump runs. Ron DeSantis will not run if Donald Trump runs. He will be there to support him and do whatever he needs to do. He'll probably be his vice presidential pick.
I would so love that.
He would. Let's be real. Who else is he going to choose?
That would be fantastic.
There's nobody else making their bones like Ron DeSantis is making their bones. Plus, it's his home state. I mean, there's nobody else he could choose. Mike Pence would never be asked back. Let's get real. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not even allowed to say him on this show anymore. The producer has banned that name. All right, so Silver Skunk. Yeah, basically, it's not even a conversation worth having because it's not. I do agree with Robert because what's his name? Kurt Schlichter ran a Twitter poll, and then he's got a lot of followers and got a good deal of responses, and he was shocked to see the races, which the results, which were that Ron DeSantis really is becoming a favorite. Well, I got to tell you, Twitter is not a scientific poll, so it's almost kind of pointless anyway. But then somebody had said, I would love to see either Robert or Rich poll this, meaning from Trafalgar or me, to see if I see that in scientific polling. I do think it's time we start to add the Republican primary question to our next survey. I wanted to add it to this one. It just got huge, if you guys remember. There's some trade-offs I think we need to do. We need to have a discussion about, because certain things, I know it's early, but we're going to want a trend. You're not going to want to have this thing run up on you guys and then, have 1 or 2 months of data to start with when everybody else had a longer time. Now, I'm not saying it's predictive right now, but it can tell us where the Republican Party mood is sitting. All right? Head-to-head generals, that's pointless. Totally pointless right now. But the primary isn't, because it'll tell us where the party is. All right, so I do think that's a conversation we need to have. We need to have that. And then basically, if Trump doesn't run, who is your first choice? There should be 2 questions. 1, who's your first choice? And then 2, if Trump doesn't run. All right. And again, Robert said, I'm not sure it's worth contributing to the media narrative. What he was saying, what the point Robert was trying to make, and I get it's a valid point, is that any pollster who does that is definitely contributing to the Democratic narrative that the media pushes. The media, the Democrats, the same damn thing. All right, the Demediocratic Party, as we can refer to them. All right, they are going to push this narrative. They're trying to sow division between Trump voters and people who would otherwise support Ron DeSantis over Trump. They're trying to sow division there. They want DeSantis voters to be pissed if he gets pushed out by Trump. They want them to be pissed, so they'll vote for Biden or Harris. Right? Because I don't think, but at this rate, I mean, Biden can't even get. guys, it's not me bashing him. The man is not in good shape. He couldn't even hold a thought in the summit. It was so sad. It honestly was sad. And embarrassing. He didn't know the difference between Libya and Syria. He made that mistake no less than 3 times. There were times where he was asked a question and he would just go into this stare for like, remember that one? It was like 60 seconds, 40 seconds. It's terrible. And then when someone tries to call him on something, he gets nasty. He's a mean old man. Joe Biden was never decent, which is what I always found so funny about the decency argument. He's a mean SOB and always has been. He's a nasty old man. He's yeah. He's not a nice guy.
Creeper, too.
He's a creeper, a nasty old creeper.
Mm-hmm. Dirty old man.
That's who he is.
That's what it is.
Everybody knows it. They just told this story to you people. I mean, you know who he's nice to? Other lawmakers who he thinks is in the club. That's why Obama used to send him down to Capitol Hill all the time when they needed the debt ceiling raised or they couldn't get something through. Because the club liked Joe Biden.
He was nice to China.
He was nice. Yeah, I mean, he was real nice to the Chinese. But no, I mean, he's nice to other representatives and lawmakers because they're a club. They're an exclusive club of which you do not belong. And anyone else, he's a nasty SOB. People who work for him, people he's met. He's not a nice dude. Never was. I don't know where this came, They just made that up to compare him to Donald Trump because they couldn't argue about policy. What were they going to do? Make an economic argument against the guy with the strongest economy in most people's living lifetime? And no way. So they needed something else. Nasty tweets. You're not a decent person if you vote for Donald Trump. Only indecent people would vote for Donald Trump. Don't repeat that if it's bad. I can see that look on your face.
Flashkin, you're funny. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, I can't repeat it on the air. All right, but let's get one more and then we'll bring in Don. All right, I'm going to have to reconnect probably to see him there, but let's do it. All right,
so Descendant Writer wants to know, when do you think Republican base will finally have had enough of elected officials doing nothing to support their conservative values and principles and get serious about starting a third party, and how quickly can it be done?
Well, I think they're going to try to purge the one they got first. I really do. Because, look, they were already doing that in 15 and in 16 actually started before then, although they weren't as strong. So they weren't as organized, I would say. And then Trump came around and just wiped them out. It showed how weak they really were. The problem, this is a mistake Donald Trump made. Instead of taking them out, and he could have. When he won, he had so much political capital in that Congress, Paul Ryan would have been gone. Gone. Mark Meadows had a plan, it would have worked. He chose to extend an olive branch to Paul Ryan. He chose to extend an olive branch to Mitch McConnell.
Not smart.
And it wasn't smart. It was not smart. And, there you have it. I mean, so now, basically what I'm saying is, he basically had, it was like a piece of gum. He basically had an opportunity that he blew. And so now the party, I think, is going to try to pick up where they left off. There were 4 years of the establishment kind of playing Donald Trump and hoping to outlive him, which they've done. And they were trying. That's what January 6th really was about, by the way, trying to permanently get rid of him. And it didn't happen because he's too strong. He's too well liked among their own voters. They will never get the support of their voters over him. And when it comes to who do you when it's time for choosing, the voters will always choose the people who stand up for them. So I think before there's a third party, buddy, the Republican Party will probably try to purge itself. And it's easier to do that
Then create another party.
Yeah, it is. I mean, no, it's easier to create another party. It's easier to be electorally successful. Yeah, by taking it. Well, we'll see, though. And Donald Trump, by the way, is making up for that now, or trying to make up for it now, by raising money they need I mean, folks, he keeps this up, he's going to handicap them. That takes away their ability to coerce members to behave, or behave the way they want them to behave, not to behave. But, certain funding, when you have a tight raise, a committee assignment, you take their money from them and they lose negotiating power. They lose stature. They lose influence. DC is run by seniority and financial influence. That is what matters in DC. And by Trump taking money that would otherwise go to the National Republican Senatorial Committee, or the National Republican Congressional Committee, or the Republican National Committee, is directly impacting the influence they have. And he should keep doing it. Keep doing it. I mean, if you want more of a people's party, keep doing it. I wouldn't, if it was me, I wouldn't give $1 to those organizations. I mean, that's just me. You do you. I'm just saying. I would give it to people I support. I've generally always been like that, even as a younger guy.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Orange out would like to know.
Orange out.
He's not
That's funny,
he's
man.
In the middle kind
That's
of
great. I think it's funny. I think it's funny.
No, but,
and we can
out.
laugh. We're supposed to be able to laugh at each other. I don't know what the hell happened.
Will the 2020 census hold up in court? If not, will seats go to California?
Yeah, that's honestly a question for Robert. I think it probably will. Mm-hmm. And there are, as far as California goes, it's funny because California is actually losing population, has lost population. Florida and Ohio, not Ohio anymore, excuse me. Florida and, maybe we'll see, but the biggest growing areas are Texas and Florida, and Arizona. Maricopa grew quite a bit. So did Georgia, grew quite a bit. So we'll see, but there will be, or at least everyone expects, districts in California to change quite a bit. And we're actually polling that right now to see how that impacts certain areas out there. For instance, Jim Costa had what was once a very close district. Thank you, that's killing me. Had what was once a very close district. In 2014, he lost. And then the vote, how California's been doing it like this for a while. Yeah. He was sworn in and called back. He was one of only a few people I've known of that's ever happened. And all of them were California, and all of them were Republicans. In other words, you're sworn in as a freshman congressman, and then you are 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, unseated. Because these votes just keep trickling in California. But he had, what should have been a 6-point race. That was what the jungle primary was. Winnable kind of district under the right circumstances and turnout. He blew her out of the water to almost, 15 points, something like that. His district will get David Valadao, if it goes the way people expect. Mm-hmm. David Valadao or Valadao, whatever his name is. He's done. He's done. We've run the numbers. First, it's more than him just pissing off Donald Trump voters. It's more than that. He will move from a even district in a PVI to a deficit of at least 5. At least. And then what is currently 16 will inherit some of 21. And that sum votes Republican. So Costa will have a very tight race. If it does go as expected, adding seats, I'm not sure yet whether that's going to happen, because, if they do, then they'd be chopping up urban centers, because Los Angeles shrunk. Los Angeles is in the top 10 metro cities to lose population. So, by the way, Chicago, Wayne County, Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, all of these places that put up all of these ridiculously anti-historical numbers are also the largest losers of population. I told you, I look at the voter file year after year after year after year. These were economically depressed areas where populations were running. There was absolutely no explanation for this kind of an increase. None. The only correlation, let's use that word to be nice, is the percent of the vote that was mail-in vote. The higher the percent of the vote that was mail-in vote, the more crazy these turnout increases. And also, they didn't drop, like, we can look at even states like Tennessee and neighboring counties in other states. Iowa and Wisconsin were great examples. Demographically, very similar. The only difference is the mail-in vote. Very strange. All right, so let's bring in Don. All right, what is it? It's 12. Let's bring in Don. And give me a second, folks. Let me get him in here. Okay. And I will be taping, I guess, the interview with Don. I got a thing I got to go to this weekend. I got to basically travel. So, yeah. What did I just do? What in the hell did I just do?
I don't know, but you're doing some extra special.
Hang on, buddy. I don't know what in the hell I did. I shrank you.
And then he's like, this is why Rich isn't allowed to push buttons.
This is why I'm not allowed to push buttons. All right. Let me get rid of this one. Let's remove this one. Yeah, that's your title, though, right? Yeah. Jeez. Robert's gonna. You know what I did? I replaced Robert's title with Don's image. Sorry. Look, I'm trying to do things here myself here, and it isn't working out. All right. It just is easier for me to do it. And then I got it. Look, it takes me a minute to get Don working here. I don't know what it is. Oh, you got the stuff. He's over there.
Don't tell him.
I won't. Well, I set it up. I mean, somebody knows that. If somebody knows that that word, then they're gonna know what it is. All right, let's bring him in, and boom. How you doing, my friend? Thanks for joining us. Thanks for waiting on that.
No problem. I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
As always, living the dream, my friend. As always, living the dream. After the show, some point, we'll tape our thing for tomorrow because, as I was just trying to tell the audience before I did the picture-in-picture with you, is that I got to go to South Carolina this weekend, and it's a bit of a haul to drive. I was going to go anyway because I go to this place where I get fireworks, and I don't know if anybody has seen a PPD fireworks show in the past, but they're incredible, and I will put it up this year as well. Nice. However, they're usually conducted in Florida, so we shall see how this goes this year.
So if Rich isn't on the show for a while,
Laura's bailing me out of jail. But it's worth it. I should get one of them to just put up to show the audience. It's on. One of them is on our YouTube channel. I think that's last year's. Is on the YouTube channel. Guys, if you haven't seen a PPD fireworks show, they are pro. And I look when I was in the Army.
Well, speaking of Army,
that's what I did. Things that went boom. And I just got out, and first I didn't like fireworks actually when I first got out, and that was fun. And then after that though, I started to they were interesting. Okay, well, this cord is this many seconds to burn this long, and I would just play around with them, Don, and say, you know what, let's try to time them correctly, and I thought it was fun, and I would do that. Then I just started putting together these massive displays, So if people haven't seen it, after the show, you should check out a PPD fireworks show. I'll run it on the show one day. I will. I'll run it on the show just so you guys don't have to leave a show to go watch it or something. They're cool, man. They're cool. They're cool. So, so I was doing some, it's really talking about Biden before and everything, going down the line here. You were in the military too, Don. This guy, Millie, what are your thoughts on this guy? I mean, I gave my thoughts already. Just let me get your take on that.
I think it's terrible. We had Colonel Ken Benway on last night from Special Operations Speaks, and we talked about that a little bit. Come on. So the example that he uses, right? Well, I've read about Karl Marx and Mao, and I've read all this stuff. Right. You chose to read those things, and that's perfectly okay. So there's nothing wrong with reading those things. Certainly that's not a problem. It's when you require those things to be read. That's the problem. So I don't know what I don't know what some of these military leaders today think their mission is, or America's mission is, if we're called on, because I don't think it's being woke. I don't think it has social justice has nothing to do with it when you're on the battlefield. It has nothing to do with anything. I would say it could probably get you killed if you're sitting around and that's what you're worried about. Kind of have other motivations, other priorities, and things to work on. So yeah, I just thought I think it's terrible, the general direction with which the military is going. Let's face it, it takes a certain type of person, it takes a certain type of mentality to actually storm the beaches at Normandy or whatever. I mean, it's not just something that everybody's cut out to do. And so yeah, I had a problem with it. I had a problem with it again because if people want to read all those things, everybody's free to read whatever they want to read. It's when you make it a requirement. Nobody required him to read Karl Marx or Mao or read about any of these people. So the whole woke thing to me is just so lame. I don't know. That's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, I mean, Don, the thing with me is, like you just said, like, first of all, this kind of distraction will get you killed. All right, that's number one. This has nothing to do with combat effectiveness. What the hell is he concerned about this? You want to be concerned about something, General. Your job is to make sure we can't be defeated in total war. That is your job, right? And I don't think that is a job he'd be able to do successfully right now. I mean, we haven't won a decisive war in a while, Don. We can't even beat the Taliban. We're supposed to beat back the Chinese. I mean, this is nuts. Worry about that instead. And he's so well read. He reminded me of Alexander Hamilton. He really did. With this, I'm so well read. I'm so, basically, I'm so educated, right?
Right.
He didn't even say the damn name correctly. I'm like, if you're so educated, you're supposed to know your enemy, right? Aren't you supposed to know your enemy? And he has clearly no idea at all. I just don't think he's doing his job. I mean, I mean, it's also an educational institute, or whatever, however you put it, West Point. We're all very familiar with what they teach you at West Point, General.
Right. It's no different than the education system. Okay, so it's a learning institute and all those kind of things. What is the purpose of the military? To teach people how to be socially interact? No. It's almost the opposite if you really look at it, but it's just like in schools. So, okay, yeah, their job is to educate kids, not educate kids on sex education, on how to be ashamed of your skin color, or it's not their job to do those things. That's like the parents' job. In this case, the military, it's an educational institution to learn how to go to war, to protect the country, to protect our freedoms, to do that. I mean, that's what the military is about. At least it was when I was in. It seems like it's going a different direction now, and I just think that's a little scary for operational readiness.
Yeah, white rage, Don. I mean, white rage. I mean, what on earth is he talking about?
I don't know.
What about the rage when Donald Trump was inaugurated? There were actual burning of buildings. There were actual burning of cars. There was rioting. There was looting. Nobody gave a damn about that. Here we have a very different situation.
Yeah, but just think about that. Just think about that. White rage. So there's like a special kind of rage that is only felt by people with white skin, and they have this special rage that's different from everybody else's rage. We're all human beings. So there's no white rage that's different than black rage or Hispanic rage, or I mean, what an awful term in and of itself, white rage.
Right?
What does that mean?
Stuff? What is it? Right. Where do they come up with this stuff? What does that mean at all? What? And by the way, I mean, why are we focused? This is getting very uncomfortable, right? So nobody talks about black rage when BLM is like burning Minneapolis to the ground, man. When they burned police, they seeded a precinct. They just said, you know what, we're getting out of here. Everybody get out of here. They're about to take this. We're gonna let them have this one.
Right.
What on earth? Nobody. I mean, this is just really. It's just, to me, it's getting to the point where, like, I smell Inquisition in the air. I really do, Don. I smell an Inquisition coming, and it's crazy, because I got to tell you, and I've told you about some of the stuff we've caught. I'm looking at the documents people like him are putting together, and they're anti-white. They are not anti-right wing. They're anti-white and anti-anyone who questions the role of government or the wisdom of government, because there are groups that you and I would consider leftists, but they are anti-government, or at least question authority. They're lumped in with right-wing extremists on this on the documents we have. So, I mean, for everybody who thinks it's like, all right, don't worry, the power of government's being used for your cause, you really should think long and hard about this, because the minute you deign to question authority, you'll be lumped in with them too.
You know, I served on a submarine.
Man.
I served on a submarine, and we were, I mean, every race and ethnicity and every religion and everything was covered with our crew. Our lives depended on each other. They are literally now introducing racism. They are separating people by skin color. That was the exact opposite of when I served. We didn't care about any of that stuff. We were all shipmates. To this day, we're all still really good friends. There was none of that stuff going on. Skin color meant nothing. When you're underwater and you're trying to, do your job so you don't screw up and everybody ends up dying, and our lives depended on each other, and there was no animosity based on any of that stuff. It was just we all had a singular mission, a singular focus, and we were a true team. What they're doing right now, Rich, is they're introducing separation by skin color. And to me, that's just, isn't that the opposite of what we're supposed to do? I think what I lived through on the submarine was what it should be as a society. So I don't get it.
I always said this, and it's so true, because, I'm from the Northeast. Nothing about the South ever that you hear about was ever true, and nothing about the military was ever true. And I would say, I was so blown away by the difference between reality versus what you would think, that I just, would rant and rave about it in the beginning with Laura. Like, look, the military, before the wokeism, right, was the most, told you this all the time, was the most truly progressive institution in this country. Period. End of story. You're not black, you're not white, you're not this, you're not that, you're green, and I've never heard a racial epithet thrown, and unless it was in a joke, like and there are boys being boys, right, but never out of what's the malice, or like it wasn't an epithet, because you're not really throwing it at them like that. Made fun of me from being a guinea from the north. Versus right. They called me Jersey because I had a big guinea mouth. So that was a nickname, and that's different. Never, and most of the places I trained were in the South, so I got to see a lot of it. It just was not anything. To me, they're creating these issues where they don't exist. Like you said, they are pushing us back into segregation by that. They're doing this. That never was a problem. You're Filipino, you're an Asian, I knew our best teammates there were everything, everyone, every shape, every size, every color, every creed, it was not just total not. The only thing I did get very distinct is that it was, especially enlisted, it absolutely was like God's army. People went to church, Don. People were issued a Bible. People read that Bible. There is an old saying, which I'm sure even civilians have heard: there are no atheists in a foxhole. And believe you me, that is true. All right? And
you're praying to God.
You'll be praying real quick. Let me tell you. You're praying. Yeah. Yep. So that is 100% true. So I was like, when I went in, I was baptized Greek Orthodox, but raised Roman Catholic. I converted later to Protestantism. I didn't even convert. I didn't do some. I just I left the Catholic Church, and now I consider myself a Protestant. Definitely the Army had a hand in that, because I wasn't a Catholic mass goer. I was your very typical Italian who just when I'm bad, I apologize, and I think all is forgiven. I don't actually change my behavior or do anything about it, right? I was very much a mob Catholic, like a La Cosa Nostra kind of Catholic. All right, and
disclaimer: Rich is not saying
no. I'm just saying that general idea. Yeah, whatever. I was horrible all week long, but Father, how many Hail Marys do I have to say, and I'm out of here, right? So. Put a couple things in the bowl, couple bucks in the bowl, and I'm gone, right? But I would go with friends, when we had time for mass. I'm like, oh my, this is actual. You guys worship God here, whoa, they're playing music. What is going on? It totally blew me away. So that's the only thing I would say, how deep religion, faith really is in their, ingrained in their character, in their community. That is something that I guess bore out true, but it was cool. It wasn't weird. It wasn't like, what's that movie everyone's always talking about?
Oh, like the
Don, the crazy religious, what is it? Oh man, I'm forgetting it, but that's what somebody's probably going to say it. It's one word. The movie's one word, and it's religious fanaticism, and they kill people, and it's just nuts. But you know what everybody always says it is. And it was nothing like that. It was just, I found it to be such a pleasant experience, and I wished that the rest of society had similar experiences, because we'd all be so much better off. We would all be so much better off. I went to MEPS with a guy who was from the hood. Eventually he was a totally different MOS, and that's what happens. And but I just wish that everyone saw what we saw, Don. And it pisses me off, like what happened with them trying to go, well, we're going to purge all these right-wingers from our ranks, what they did. These are good people. These are salt of the earth people. And I got news for you guys. The military's right-wing. I mean, it is. Not the brass. The brass was never right-wing. They're whatever wing they think will give them a war. That's what they are. These people have no principles whatsoever. The higher you go on the totem pole in the military, the dirtier it gets, just like anything else. But the people down below, salt of the earth, Don. So and it pisses me off when I hear like the president and people who surround him talking about how we have to purge the military of these extremists. These are not extremists, or this is not. I'm sure there's extremists everywhere, but I didn't meet any of them in the military. Don, did you?
No. And
where the hell did you?
I talked with my friend General Paul Vallely a lot, Major General Vallely, and what he always told me is, once you get above over 3 stars, so once you hit your 4th star, you're no longer a military leader, you're a politician. Yeah. Because the only people that get that are those that go into the General Millies, the people like this who go into politics and have aspirations on that end of things. That's right. So he is absolutely correct with that.
They'd call the general an extremist.
Oh, absolutely. A Satanist.
They call him all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Guy literally wrote the book on information warfare for the country, and he's treated like crap. General Flynn, he gives over 3 decades of his life in service to this country. What does he get in return? Persecuted and prosecuted. Fake crime. Entrapped with a fake crime. I mean, this is just... And now there are good people down the totem pole who are going to get, steamrolled. I have a friend. I'm not going to say where... I don't want to blow him up. But I will say his rank. He's a captain. And his senior officer basically said, you got this long until you're out. I would strongly suggest, because he does have some issues, he was like, I would strongly suggest putting in your disability claim right now. Because he's like, you're not going to make another X amount of years in this branch of service. I'm not going to say what it is. I want to blow him up.
With your beliefs.
Yeah, with your beliefs. And when you're getting now, you're captain, but soon after that, you're going to start to get to the political. And like you said, like you were just saying, with him, it's even happening at his XO's, his CO's rank. I mean, they're making it political for him. Yeah, he was totally against something that happened with, they wanted to use the unit to basically cheerlead for the vaccine. And he was like, this isn't our job. What the hell are you talking about? I don't want to give away too much information, but once you get to that level... there are good people who serve this country. Many of them have multiple tours of duty, and they're really at a point where they may have to either leave early, and put in their disability claim at the VA to make sure they have something before it ends badly for them.
Yeah. Well,
just crazy, man.
Look at the guy they put in charge of the Space Force. So not a mission one, not even mission 1 yet. And he got fired. Why did he get fired? Because he said Marxism and communism are bad. Yeah. Think about this. I grew up in a day and age where they used to teach us how to hide under our desk and, do the whole duck thing. And because there could be a nuclear thing. I mean, so we knew communism was bad. There was a lot of threats from it. That's the whole Cold War was all about. And here's this guy who simply states that it's bad. Marxism and communism are bad, which like history supports that. But he gets fired for that. So it's not about being woke. As General Milley said, it's about being woke in the right direction. You must believe these things. That's where the problem comes in for me. If somebody wants to read, they can read any book they want to read. This is America. We're free to do that. But you don't force people to read. You don't force people to believe in a certain ideology. And if you don't believe in those things, you better keep your mouth shut, because you're not going to last long. And that was proven in that situation. But that's where it gets scary, is when we force people. So you made the comment that like what we experienced in the military was progressive. I'll say this. It was what progressives always tell us they want the world to be.
True progressive.
True,
right.
Yeah, but that's really not their goal. Look what's going on right now all across the country. They're segregating people in college dorms. They have black-only college dorms. It started all with the safe space stuff, right? So I got a safe space, and I want to be able to keep this group of people out. That is the opposite of what progressives tell us they want. But what they're actually doing in reality is the opposite of what they say they want. They're regressing this country into segregation. I mean, that's I don't think that's progress.
Yeah, it's a segregation, something people literally gave their lives to end. I mean, in some cases. I mean, really. This is, but you got to wonder to what end. Because they don't want to be segregated for the sake of being segregated. You got to wonder with the anti-white rhetoric, what is the end here? And it's like, it's not equality. It looks like it's humiliation and persecution and payback. That's what it looks like to me, Don. I mean, or payback for whatever in their mind they think they need to get retribution from. You know, I mean, and it's sad. It really is, because again, I didn't see any extremists when I was in the military. All right, I didn't see any of them. Did they generally support Bush, and were generally Republican voters, and and even really, look, soldiers have their views, but you carry out orders. Even people, they didn't disobey. They did question. Like, I don't know if this is such a good idea. What are we going into Iraq for? The problem was Afghanistan, and we're still not done with Afghanistan. So, I mean, there's that, but nothing like, that's not, questioning authority is not dangerous, Don. I mean, that's how it reads in these documents. That really is the sin. If you read between the lines, and we need to start reading them next week. If you read between the lines, the sin is Trump and his followers, individuals. And Trump and his followers bucked or challenged the authority from the status quo. So that is the overall theme here. It has nothing to do with an individual ideology. The central theme is that you are not allowed to challenge us, and you will be punished if you challenge us. And that's it, man. I'm telling you, that is what, because you can see it with other groups. Like I said, we get into it, and I'll send you some of them too. But let's take a few questions here.
A lot of questions.
Okay, you know what I mean, wise guy.
Hey, I gotta pick on you when I can. It makes my day go by faster.
And I'm gonna take a 2-minute break while you and Don answer a question too.
Well, question for Rich and Don.
Well, I'll answer.
Why did GOP senators race over to the White House to try and give Biden a win on infrastructure? Call me cynical, but I think establishment GOP senators see Biden's sinking poll numbers and are trying to give him a boost, knowing any further decline for Biden will likely result in a Trump comeback. Yeah,
they're terrified of a Donald Trump comeback. I mean, I think that's without a doubt. They don't want the country to hear Trump say, I told you so. That's what they don't want. And look, the Senate, Don, I think you'd agree with this. When it comes to senators, Republican Senate, they're worse than the House. They are an exclusive little club of elitist little snobs. Agreed. They are the worst. I mean, the John Thunes. I mean, you just down the line. And they wouldn't give Trump his infrastructure bill, which actually was a doable infrastructure bill. This isn't an infrastructure bill, Don. This is a bunch of wokeism mixed in with goodies to certain people. We've covered this extensively on People's Pundit. That's not how infrastructure works in this country. Trump's plan wasn't a typical infrastructure bill because it relied on private-public partnerships, and nobody was allowed to like have a buddy to outbid. You know, it was merit focused, and it was logistically possible. This is not. This is like Solyndra, Don. That's what this is. It's Solyndra 2.0 with wokeism in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think part of the problem is the typical problem, and we talk about this week after week after week, and we'll talk about it probably for the rest of our lives unless they figure it out and get better at this. So here's the thing: they put this bill on, and it's about infrastructure, right? So it's about infrastructure. Well, it wasn't about infrastructure. Very small portion of it was about infrastructure. That's the messaging. So stand up and tell people that, because people understand that. And I think actually people were understanding the fact that there was so much that had nothing to do with roads and bridges and all the things that we consider infrastructure. Everybody knew that they were changing the definition of infrastructure by using terms like human infrastructure. Right? What the hell does that mean? I mean, that's nothing. That's a nothing term that covers anything that's actually not infrastructure. But since you got infrastructure on there, well, then it's infrastructure. No, it isn't. Human infrastructure is not a thing. It does not exist. Like white rage is not a thing. It doesn't exist. Everybody feels rage. So I think the problem really comes down to this. They have such a lack of confidence in their ability to message things and explain that to people. And in this case, they were actually winning it. People were getting it, but they gave up. They gave up and they said, well, we want to show a win, and we don't want to be the party that stands against, whatever it is, whether it's healthcare, whatever the issue is. We don't want to be the party that stands against fixing a bridge. So but Joe Biden, yesterday in his press conference, Joe Biden said, did everybody hear this? He said, so we took these things out because everybody doesn't get everything that they want. Yeah, okay. No left-winger actually believes that. No, they don't think that way. They're going to get everything they want. It's David Axelrod when he said when they were going to do the government shutdown, and he said, this isn't an a la carte menu. We don't care what they want. We don't care. Sign it. So that's how they think. Let's be honest about that right now. But Joe Biden said, so we took these things out of the bill. So this is totally an infrastructure bill, which it isn't. So push back against that. Tell the American people what it really is. But he said, we took these things out and we're going to come back at those again. And I'm not going to sign this bill I'm not going to sign this bill that they just agreed to unless they also give us the other bill. So in essence, he said, yes. Yeah. In essence, what he told the American people was, we can't expect to always get whatever we want. However, right then 2 minutes later, he says, but we're going to get everything we want.
Yeah.
So There you go. Their inability to push back against this and tell the American people what it really is, and they'll support it. Look at all the polling you're doing where they're legislating against the will of the people. So use that data and say, no, we're going to stand strong on this. And so it's just the typical rhino establishment stuff, and they never learn.
Can we be honest for a second? They wanted Donald Trump gone. A Joe Biden presidency with a Mitch McConnell-run Senate was their goal. I'm just going to say that out loud. Mitch McConnell wanted to remain the majority leader, of course, but he did want Joe Biden to be president. Let's get real for a second, folks. Lord, do you remember him and Paul Ryan and the Mayflower? Yes. Laughing at Donald Trump the day he was inaugurated, or day after, I think it was. It was like right after. And Trump had said, we're building, that wall's going up. I'm building that wall. They were behind the cameras laughing and mocking him. After Paul Ryan goes to the microphone like a coward and starts like an actor, or maybe Chuck Schumer's niece gave him lessons or something. Probably. He heard a voice that none of us heard. You remember this crap. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as the camera's off, him and Mitch McConnell are mocking him, talking about what an idiot he is, how this is never going to happen. I will never let this wall go up. Well, I will never bring this to a vote. And Paul Ryan lied to his face and said, you'll get a vote after the omnibus bill, which was 2 years later, damn near. And, they got killed. They were saying, we can't vote on that before the midterms, we'll lose the House. They told the president that. I kid you not, man. This is how dumb these people. But some of it's not stupidity, is my point. Some of it, like Mitch McConnell wanting a Senate that is controlled by him, yet Joe Biden the president, they wanted that, folks, because then it was back to business as usual. These people are lackeys for K Street. And when Donald Trump was president, K Street wasn't getting everything it wanted like it always does. Business was not as usual. And in this infrastructure bill, the sad difference, because they wouldn't give Trump his. Trump at least had projects in his infrastructure bill, the goals of his projects were to self-fund some of them. And the private sector had to take responsibility for certain things because they were benefiting from them. So in Trump's bill, it was basically, yes, we're going to help you do this, but you're going to have to do this in return. There's none of that here. Yep. This is back to a very traditional Democratic infrastructure bill, which isn't. It's a goodie to their benefactors.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's going to be a large version of Solyndra, where their friends get the money and the country doesn't benefit whatsoever.
Yeah. Here's where we pay the price as the American people on the media, on the lack of even interest or curiosity about things like this infrastructure bill. Barack Obama, nearly $1 trillion, right? When he comes into office, what does he do? He gets up, he puts Joe Biden in charge of the transparency. Remember, because they were the most transparent administration ever. They were going to create a website, Rich, that was going to tell you where these are their words, not mine. They were going to tell you where every dime was spent. You were going to be able to track the project. Is that bridge done?
I remember. Yeah.
Because of the lack of even curiosity by the media, they never even bothered to put a website up, even just to put something up and say, oh, yeah, we're working on getting this stuff. And nobody ever asked. So there you go. So this is going to be just as serious as that one was. And Joe Biden was the guy put in charge of that.
Everything he runs point on. He ranks. By the way, they're not even going to. He was handed the vaccine goal. He was handed, and they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it. And it's whose fault is it? Whose fault is it?
Orange man bad.
It's Trump's fault, and it's Trump supporters' fault. Those backward hicks. They don't get this vaccine. I heard it the other day, and now he's in North Carolina, trying to get Trump voters in Carteret and Craven County to take the vaccine. I mean, you got to be joking me, man. Anyway, go ahead.
Chris K would like to know, what are your guys' take on ranked choice voting?
Ooh.
Seems okay, but it gives me the impression it will be used to give the illusion of choice. Establishment will just flood ballot with like candidates.
We actually saw Maine, for instance. We actually saw the Republican win a plurality only to lose in the ranked choice. So I don't like ranked choice voting, Don. Never did. I don't like it. I mean, I'll let you get your take, but it's a very easy system to exploit. If you're the establishment and you're directing resources, it's very difficult for insurgent candidates to win ranked choice, because that's the way I feel. And I think that early experimentation in this country has proven me right.
The sitting committee agrees.
Yeah, and I agree totally, and I agree with the comment that was added on to the end of that question. It's an illusion thing. It's it's like the Affordable Care Act or the Super Duper Good for Americans Act, which is super duper bad, and
the 17th Amendment.
everything's always the opposite of what it's labeled. So
yeah. The 16th and 17th Amendment log rolling deal, total illusion. I mean, we're gonna give people the power over the Senate, and we're gonna only tax the rich. How'd that work out? I mean, I've demonstrated with empirical evidence. You've read it. With empirical evidence, it's not true. Wealth was much more dispersed before that log rolling deal. Now it's concentrated in and around D.C. and other areas, power centers. I mean, it's fine. People would be surprised to learn the share of the wealth that a state like Ohio had before the 17th Amendment and 16th Amendments. All right, go ahead. I know you're dying over there to get another one in. I see it's 12:53. Time is ticking. I see you.
Yeah. All right, so Joel and another person also had a question about, could you explain the irregularities that happened in Arizona, particularly Pima and Apache, and what is going on with this Arizona audit?
So we don't really hear. That's a good question, and I'm glad somebody asked about Arizona, because the truth is, for people who were looking into irregularities the way we could only look at Maricopa in the beginning. There was no data available for Pima and Apache and all, and I'm not trying to single out because we heard about a lot of problems in Cochise, and so I mean, I don't want to single out just blue counties, but Don, the thing with the Arizona audit is such, everyone wants to look at that 2.1 million because Maricopa's so big and it has the most. Of course, Republicans want to look at it because it has the most chance to tilt in Trump's favor, and I think in the end, the Secretary of State herself, Hobbs, is starting now. I mean, at first, months ago, Don, it was this audit isn't legit, and then this audit, even if they are doing this in good faith, it doesn't matter. It's not good for the country. It's not good for the state. Now, the last comment she made earlier in the week was, even if Donald Trump did win Arizona, it's too late. We're not undoing it. So, I mean, how do you evolve like that unless you're suspecting something horrible? But I will say, people really need to understand this. Maricopa was the only one who made certain data available. All right, so at least give them that. Others would not give us that. We were waiting for the voter file to update, and still, absentee ballot versus in-person election day, and Arizona is huge with mail-in voting, always has been. 80% of the electorate on any given election cycle, 85 is mailed vote. Only election day is only 15%, 10% usually. They didn't offer that. It's only recently that some of that started to come online. And the truth of the matter is, it's going to take a long time to go through it. So what do I think of this audit? In the end, Don, I mean, it's great that the way they're doing it will absolutely identify where numbers just simply don't match, right? Which we're seeing. They are seeing that. Obviously, Flanagan would not have sent that letter unless it was a serious problem. This is not a fire breather. This woman is not a fire breather, right? She's being attacked and has been, especially when that letter first came out. She is not some Trump supporting, toting, fire-breathing conservative. That's not who she is. She's a serious person, really. And if she wrote that letter, there's something really, really wrong. And the bottom line, though, they can find that stuff. But, Don, they're not going to match the signatures. The goal is not to strictly enforce signature verification. And that was the central key this time. And the same thing with Georgia. They're going to purge 101,000. Don, Fulton County has 140,000 change of address flags. So how could you tell me Georgia statewide only has 101 inactive and invalid records? That's bull. And people like, rhino reporters, like the Guy Bensons and the not to pick on anybody, and the Byron Yorks, they just take what they're told and regurgitate it. You don't have access to what I have access to. I am telling you that there are more change of address flags in Fulton County alone. Alone, not statewide.
Yeah, the whole thing just burns my rear end. We talked about this for how long, Rich? I mean, we all saw this coming. Yeah, we all saw this coming, and it wasn't like a couple weeks.
We did.
Yeah.
They
and it
got
wasn't
rolled.
And it wasn't like it was just a couple weeks before the election. We were talking about this for months and months leading into it. And it was the whole thing with the obviously the pandemic, changing the rules, changing all these things. So it ticks me off that we weren't better prepared for this, that nobody did anything to make sure we could capture things right away, because we're so far away from the crime scene at this point that what are you going to do? I mean, it would be really hard, and you have to prove all these different things. Now there's so much more criteria you would have to be able to prove it without a doubt. This happened, and it will change the election, and it will this, and it will that, and we all saw this coming, and that's what really, really ticked me off. I don't mean to pounce on President Trump or anything, but for crying out loud, we had plenty of time to prepare for this, just like some of those states had times to prepare for what they ultimately did on election day. So,
and like the Giulianis and others, I mean, Don, they just had no idea what they were talking about or doing. And somebody pointed out to me that it isn't Bill Priestep. I accidentally said Bill Priestep on election night, and it wasn't. Now his name is slipping my mind again. It was but bottom line, saying that the president's margin was not not possible to overcome with fraud. There's not enough votes remaining, and I was saying that is not true, and absolutely could be overcome. Whatever though, like you said, 3 months, 2.5, 3 months, Don, before the election. This is what is going to happen. This is why, and this is how it's possible. It's like you were just talking about, though. I mean, just take one part of this which is verifying the signatures. This should be like a crimes committed, and then you wait 6-8 months, and then go sweep for fingerprints. Yeah, exactly.
That's the
Pennsylvania already threw the envelopes out. Don,
Yeah,
the envelopes are gone.
Right.
I mean, so not just Pennsylvania, by the way. I mean, certain counties, and then you know, in Michigan, it's like, where are these affidavits for change of address? All right, so where is the absentee ballot applications? There you have a basically, you know, penalty on, you know, perjury, man. If you're not telling the truth, if you truly have a change of address and you need your absentee ballot sent somewhere else, they were basically allowing you to not have to change your record. You just have to sign, however, that this is you and it's valid request, and they will send that new absentee ballot to that address that is not on your record. And that is problematic in and of itself. But where are those absentee ballot forms? By law, they're supposed to hold them. You know, and it's like we got to go over and over this. But people who are watching, no. We had, Laura just was saying it and signaling it to me before. The bullet points that I put up day after day after day. This is why this is different this year. This is what they want. Here is why they want it. And here is why the scrutiny of the signatures is going to allow them to get away with it. Because the bottom line is, it doesn't matter how much you expand the potential pool of votes out there, or how much you try to outsource fraud by sending somebody who hates Donald Trump 20 different ballots from people who lived at their address for 30 years. You got him, Don. You got him. So for the media, outrageous to tell so many Americans this didn't happen. It did happen. It happened to many of us. Those of you who watch this show, Robert got like 8, man, in his state. I mean, come on. I got one from California that I actually thought was a joke. And at first I'm like, this can't be right. This has to be BS. So I had to like get the names and start crossing them. This woman she was not lying, man. She was no joke. And these were ballots from like multiple family members who had lived in this address for years and years and years. The woman had like, I don't know, 16, I forgot what the final number was. It was a ridiculous amount of ballots. All to her address.
Yep.
Official ballots.
The two that we got, and I won't use the exact name, but it was like Jim Wood, and it was Jim Wood the third.
Yeah, right.
and no Jim Wood ever lived in this house. They never lived at this address. Brent, my wife got a call. Brenda, she got a call from Wisconsin. Hey, do you need us to send your ballot? What's your address now so we can see? We haven't lived in Wisconsin in 15, 16 years. I don't know, maybe longer. But they wanted to send her a ballot. Boy, let's get this ballot out to you. Yeah, send it to Florida, because that makes sense, right?
They probably did send it to your old address. That's my point, though. You know, like since Brenda, didn't give them another address, it went. I'm telling you, Don, I'll check.
Jim Wood.
Brenda's name. I'll find
Jim
it.
Wood probably got it. Jim Wood or Jim Wood the third.
Right. Right.
One.
Meanwhile, people, I don't want to blow up Don's situation. Let me just say this: there's no chance that could have been someone at his address. So it's more than that. It's more what I'm saying, which is that people who lived at the address prior. Just take my word for it when I tell you it's not possible that those people lived at Don's address prior. It's not physically possible. I mean, it's just insane. And that was a state that actually handled the election much better than most other states. Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, my favorite is the dead that get to vote.
I'm going to look to see if Brenda's is there, because there was just so many people. We saw maiden names. People who asked us to check. I mean, it was the Wild West, man. It was the Wild West.
It was.
Go ahead, shoot out another one. I see you itching.
Actually, that was me touching my burnt shoulders.
Oh. We're a pair today. Yeah. She's burnt, and I got walloped, man, by a spider. Walloped on my foot. These things, I got bit by a black widow once. I don't know what got me this time, but it's bad. I didn't see it. I can just see what he left behind. I was mowing, outside the fence, and it just got me in the foot. I got bit by a black widow once sweeping the porch in Florida. Just sweeping. My son, he was only like 4 at the time, right? He was young. No, he was out there, and I was afraid. I saw it on the broom handle. And he's like following me around, daddy, trying to grab the broom and have fun so he can mimic me. Yep. And I went whip the broom when I saw the black widow. And it fell. I whipped it so quick, she fell off the broom and went onto my left calf. And I was like, don't you do it, you know, and I was like trying to quietly just whack her, and she got me. And at first I didn't take it seriously at all. And I'm like, right, Laura? I'm like, it's like a mosquito bite, Laura. You know? Man, oh boy, I thought I was going to die that night.
Yep.
I called North Florida Hospital. I'm like, I'm in trouble here. I think I'm in serious trouble.
I think my favorite comment from the nurse was, well, if you didn't have a heart attack yet, you're just going to have to suffer through the rest.
She said basically that I mean, you know, that if you have a reaction to a black widow right away and you know you're in trouble, then they'll give you a serum, an anti-venom. It's made from like a horse or something, she said. And it can be a little dangerous though. And you have to time it correctly. You can't like wait until you're really, really sick 12 hours, 16 hours later and then go get it. So she basically told Laura, like, look, if he didn't die already. I'm like, what?
And I was like, told you.
This isn't cool. Oh man, it was horrible. That was bad. I don't know if I could take it at this age. That was like years ago. You know, I was a younger guy. I don't know if I could. Almost 10. Yeah, I mean, it was like maybe he was younger than 4 then, because he must have been. Because I was like a young man still, and I was in good shape. You know, like really good shape. I don't think I could take it now, Don. I think that little you know what would kill me. You know.
All right, you digress. So
I
your
digress.
question is:
stay away from the Black Widows, guys. It's no joke.
What does Rich think the current trajectory of the Republican Party is right now? Are we going to gain the populist win or not?
Yeah, I mean, that remains to be seen. That, I think, is what this midterm is going to tell us about. Yeah, and it'll set the tone and tenure for the nomination in 2024. Right, Tom? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah.
We don't know that yet. We just don't know.
We don't know it, but one thing that I'm seeing that I really like, and it's an early trend because we're kind of early in this whole thing, but I'm seeing some people that are pushed into the game that maybe would not have done it if it wasn't for what happened in 2020. So I'm actually really encouraged by some of the people. 2 of the campaigns that I'm already going to be on are just rock solid candidates. One of them is going to be regaining a seat, and the other's a possible taking away of a seat that we have no business winning. But these are great candidates that probably wouldn't have done this if what happened in 2020 didn't happen. So
I couldn't agree more. That really, there's just everything from like talented people who could be to people who never would have dreamed of it, and everything from local elections to a U.S. Senate race. I mean, it's just all over, all over. From from I don't want to bust out seats and get people to say what we're talking about, but from the Midwest to the West, I mean everywhere. Yeah. And actually, local elections. I mean, it's just incredible how many people we know or have contacted us saying, "Look, I'm going to run for the Board of Ed. I'm going to run for different things. Just crazy. It's really, they took it to heart and understand. You really can't rely on the system to look out for your interest anymore. And if you think Democrats disproportionately have these like nonpartisan offices down ballot, right? And those are the ones who pull the levers of government. I mean, everything, all the machinations, they're behind it, right? And if you're going to allow, everyone who counts votes to double as they're an election official on Tuesday, they're a Democratic operative on Thursday. Well, then what the hell do you expect? And now we're seeing that. We really are. Okay, you got another one you want to
I got tons.
Let's 108. 108. We'll hold the Zoom. All
right. So let's see. I'll end with that question because it's a fun question. And we'll go to Derek. An opinion on Eric Greeton. I can't say the name. Greeton as Missouri senator.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know why he's registered as a governor.
I mean, look. I know there's some Trumpers who don't like him. Team Trump seems to like him. And I think he would be, as of now, is the strongest possibility. So maybe, look, you're not always going to get everything you love about somebody, but I wouldn't call him Rhino. I don't think that's fair. What do you think? What do you think, Don?
Yeah, no, I agree. I wouldn't call him Rhino. he's kind of somewhere in the middle there. So I wouldn't say Rhino. I wouldn't say he's, centrist right in the middle there. I think he's a little right leaning to that,
Yeah.
but it's just like you said, you're not always going to get what you want with some of these candidates. Are they going to support the main things is what I always kind of look at, is where do they stand on, these things that are really important to me and
election
I guess,
integrity. Everyone has to be grilled on election integrity in a Republican primary this time around. Everybody has to be grilled on it. You need that promise. You need that promise, folks, because nothing else matters. And, outside of that, you know what I mean? If there's no election integrity, there's no self-governing society. So, I would say this. I have seen some polling there, too. We haven't polled it, but I have seen some polling showing him to be the stronger candidate. That being said, you will see some really garbage polling in states like that. That is the kind of area where polling is really suffering. Josh Hawley was going to lose to Claire McCaskill. Remember? Fox News had them tied in their final poll. Other people, Marist had McCaskill up by 3. That's a 10-point miss. I mean, that was bad. They're just, you know what it is? You do know what it is because we went over it in the first half of the show, which is that it's just becoming more and more difficult to reach and then get the truth out of certain voters. Those voters lean to the right. So when you call or poll in any data collection mode, a state like Missouri, you're going to get these whatever metro areas they got, and the pollster's going to use that to fill up their quota. And that's how, it's easier to get a bunch of responses out of more populated areas. They're not going to do what's necessary to reach and nudge them to take these surveys and then nudge them to tell them the truth. If you are on our locals page, even on just the online questionnaire, you see how much we nudge people and remind them, how their interviews are anonymous, their responses are confidential. We go above and beyond to try to make people comfortable. And if they don't want to finish it, we'll let them come back to it. We give them a time to come back and finish it. It takes an enormous amount of effort that nobody else is really putting in. Let's just get real for a second. Nobody else is doing what we're doing. Giving them phone numbers if they want to call back, and want to finish it later. It's just all of these different things that over the years we've decided to add in the hope that we make it as easy as possible on them and get more from them. And these problems are getting worse. And like I said earlier in the show, 18, so I'm saying this because I'm cautioning you. Don't be surprised when they show the Democratic candidate ahead in these polls, in these states, and then that does not happen on election day. All right. Or they show it's a more competitive race, then give the Republican a slight edge in October, and he winds up winning by 10 points. Look, even a right-wing pollster, who I know is polling for a campaign right now, I just spoke to them. They called me and asked, maybe we need some new perspective, fresh perspective. They had Trump barely winning Missouri, and they put that poll out like right before the election. You remember that? And that was really bad. These states are getting harder. That's a perfect example of those states. But go ahead, ask your funny question.
Oh, come on. One more question.
All right, let's do one more than the funny. Okay? Right, yeah, that's good. You okay with that, Don? You good with that? It's 1:12,
Well, Sister Told You really doesn't ask often. So.
I love that. Sister Told You.
All right.
That's great. It's a great name.
One is a statement and the other is a question. According to Associated Press, this morning, Biden DOJ is suing Georgia.
Yes, I meant to bring that up. Merrick Garland. Well, go ahead. And what's the question?
Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad Sister Told You. I am so glad you brought that up because I wanted Don's take too.
Simmer down now. The GOP.
I got something to say. Go ahead. The DOJ.
The GOP doesn't have a clear message. What issues or policies are they pushing?
That's a good question. Let's take this from back to front. All right? Because Don and I can answer this one real easy. Who the hell knows? They're incompetent idiots who stand for nothing right now. They stand for nothing. They are in a crisis, an identity crisis. They have voters on their side. Don, you've seen all of this data. Right? And we are polling everywhere. They have voters on their side everywhere. In places I would never have called competitive. In districts I would have said, probably money's better spent elsewhere. People are looking by... It's not a coincidence, because it's like there are base people, there are other proponents, there are vocal people on the internet who are pushing issues like critical race, trying to put this stuff to the forefront. It has nothing to do with Kevin McCarthy or McConnell. These two are lost in the freaking sauce, man. They stand for nothing. They stand for K Street. That's what they stand for. They're donors on K Street. They're not pushing any of this. The base is pushing it. And on the first thing, we were told Merrick Garland was a moderate. He was nominated by Barack Obama to the U.S. Supreme Court. And this is a man who is now presiding over the Department of Justice and suing the state of Georgia for an election reform bill that expanded access to voting and didn't get at the heart of the central problems with this election and the lack of integrity in this election. Georgia voters overwhelmingly supported bans on ballot harvesting, bans on drop boxes, to make it the law that election officials must report their totals by election day. Period. So now you don't have to give us the margin, but you must report how many absentee ballots you have, how many in-person early votes you have, and how many election day votes you have, like Florida. You are not allowed 48 hours later to say, we got a dump of absentee ballots. Okay, because nobody is dumb enough to believe that. The media, they make up all these excuses. The people of the country, however, and especially the state of Georgia, they were just like, even Democrats, by the way, they're just like, I don't understand why they have to insert this aura of like something's wrong, like funny business. Yeah. Why do they have to insert shenanigans? Why can't they just do this, how we've always done it? If there's late arriving ballots, it looks suspicious. It looks dirty. There is no reason that they shouldn't have to follow these deadlines. They support strict scrutiny of signature verification. It was damn near 80%. They support photo ID. They didn't even really want expanded vote. Nobody told us that it was hard for them to vote. Nobody said. There was this woke, what was it, 2.6 woke percent of like professional whites who didn't support voter ID. The number was abysmal. It was nothing. Infinitesimal. You know what? It makes me want to go up. Locals community, like I did with the crosstabs today, comfortable sharing political beliefs. I'm going to go back and get election integrity from what we did in Georgia, and I'm going to make that a publicly available crosstab for you guys. I'll put the link in my locals community. I'll post it as soon as we're done here. And I'm basically going to show you what the support was in Georgia for election reform and what they wanted and what they didn't. And incredibly, Don, like you pointed out, they went right to the domain Jim Crow 2.0. God, this isn't even remotely close.
No, yeah, okay. So just take the voter ID law in and of itself,
right
and this is why messaging is important. You have to have a strategy. You've got the people on your side, and they don't say anything. But here, let me give you one example where it's actually working right now, and it's actually happening right now. Voter ID laws. This isn't a new phenomenon where the American people overwhelmingly support having a photo ID to vote. This isn't something that just happened. It's just that finally somebody started talking about it. So when you ask these guys, hey, they ran a whole campaign, the whole Senate special election there was all based on the voter ID laws and all the things that were going on in Georgia. Make them be specific and then give your specific message. In this case, people support having an ID. You've got CEOs of airlines who say it's suppressing the vote if you require a photo ID. Then aren't these same people, these same CEOs, aren't they suppressing travel? Because you have to have a photo ID to get on their plane. So the hypocrisy in that is amazing, and that's why people do support having an ID. You've got Stacey Abrams.
Go ahead.
Sorry. She led that whole thing in Georgia. And now all of a sudden, not only is she, well, of course I'm for having an ID. She doesn't even know anybody who was ever against that. She started a whole website called Pro 2.0. Raphael Warnock. The same thing. And same with him. He all of a sudden, he doesn't even know anybody who's ever been opposed to having an ID to vote. What? There's clips of him like through his whole life. I'm waiting for the baby pictures of him saying no voter ID laws, holding up a sign. These people, their whole lives have been against it, and now they're for it. Why? Because somebody finally was smart enough to say, hey, does everybody support having to have a photo ID? Yeah.
I mean,
boom.
Just
it's
incredible.
that easy.
Are you ready? Strongly supported in Georgia, 61%, supported 23.3%. So 84.3% in the state of Georgia wanted voter ID. By the way, that includes 45% of African Americans who strongly, and another third who somewhat. So 80% damn near of African Americans, if you round up, it is 80%. Over just about 89% of whites, Asians or other race are even higher than some of the other minority groups. 48% strongly, 48% support. So 96% almost on. 96. This is not. There are not many issues like this where there is like universal agreement, and they have to make a race argument about it. They have to inject hatred and division. They are the big media hate machine. That is all they do. They have no other role except for distortion and sowing division and discord. I mean, it's just incredible. Guys, I'm going to put this up. And that's photo ID. Let's see what else there is, though. There was more in this. Real quick. Signature verification. In general, do you support or oppose each of the following election integrity laws and policies, or are you unsure? Signature verification, or the strict matching of voters' signatures to driver's licenses or an official voter registration card. Strongly support 53, support 28.1. So again, 81.1%, a ban on ballot harvesting, the practice of allowing and drop boxes. The practices of allowing non-government third parties to collect and deliver ballots that don't belong to them, right? 43% strongly support, 17.2% support. I mean, this is just crazy. Election day deadlines for officials to report the total number of votes cast in their precincts and or counties. Strongly support, 44.4, support 28.4. This is crazy. Allowing poll watchers, I could just go on and on. I mean, this is like allowing poll watchers from parties to observe, to conduct oversight during the counting of ballots. Strongly support, 45.4, support 32.2. You know who doesn't support this? 2.6% of white Caucasians. When we look at who they are the woke crowd, folks. They are your college professor, folks. All right? They're the snob on the nightly news, folks. All right? This is it. They're nothing. They're 2.6%. That is the tyranny of the minority, my friend.
These are easy wins. Just put it out there. They're easy. They're so easy. The voter ID law, boom, all of a sudden, look at this. I mean, you've got these guys going, I was never against. I don't even know anybody who's against it. Your entire party. Your entire party.
Recall.
I don't recall. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, God. This is a layup, man. And Merrick Garland's suing over this. This is crazy. And by the way, not handing anybody food or drink in line, that's a federal statute too. There are federal laws against that. Have been for, basically they don't want you buying votes. Here's a candy bar, vote for my candidate. Things like that.
McCarthy or McConnell should be up in front of the American people right now. With a chart behind them that shows the numbers and say the Attorney General of the United States is now suing 80+%.
Yep. He doesn't. The Biden administration doesn't respect the will of 80% plus of voters in the state of Georgia. They think they know smarter. They're smarter than you and know better than you.
Yep.
They don't care about the integrity of your election. That's simple.
It'd take about 2 hours to shut down that entire investigation.
No kidding. You could pressure this thing right out of Maine Justice. Right out of there.
Yep.
They're incompetent, Don. They are incompetent. Kevin, get off the phone with K Street. Mitch, get off the phone with your wife in Beijing and K Street. And do something that actually speaks for the voters you claim to represent. All I mean, it's just incredible. It's a layup, Don. A layup.
Big time.
All right, let's get your funny one in there. It's guys, I'm putting that up at the end of this episode. I got to do the taping with Don. I'll do it between that while Don's getting ready and doing the thing. I'm putting it up. Don will send it to you too. I mean, it's just
Right.
it's so mind-boggling. They create division where there is none, my friend. That's their that's their
what they do.
Yeah, that's their MO.
Okay, so what was Rich's MOS in the Army? Officer or enlisted?
I was enlisted.
Would he serve again in today's Army?
No.
That's what I said. It was
And
the
my
first
MOS was I went in as an 18 X-ray, which is a special forces pipeline, and then I got Charlie, which is engineering. That was what we were assigned. Bush brought back this program after 9/11, and it was around, I believe, during Vietnam. I was the second cycle to go through. And I got to tell you, I served with the best guys. They were all rock stars. I mean, they were almost all of them. You know, there's always a turd here and there, Don, you know, but they don't make it through the pipeline, you know, in the end. And, but the first cycle, according to my, I remember my cadre, which is like, you know, I guess in the Marines you have like a drill sergeant, you know, different. We just call them cadre after a while. In their take you through the pipeline. They said it was a total epic disaster. The first cycle was a complete and total disaster. It's not easy, but with us it was cool because there was one platoon from basic on. We called them the turd platoon because they did mix in some MOSs like 11 Bravo, 11 Charlie, and others that they mixed in with the 18Xs. And we had a liaison, which is later when I got hurt. That's later who I hung with, the liaison's office. All we did was go around, you know, trying to scare people out, because that happened to me. As soon as you get there, you know, you have a guy come. He's got the most beautiful beret, and we called it the Tower of Power, which is if you go to, I didn't go to Ranger School, but if you go to Ranger School, I would have, if I would have stayed in just to get that damn patch. All right. Yeah, because we call it the Tower of Power, and you have, you know, obviously the Special Forces, the brag, you know, sword and lightning bolt. And then above that, it's Ranger, and then above that is Special Forces, and then the Airborne. And it's just cool because it's just the triple threat Tower of Power. Anyway, I remember when they walk up and they try to scare you out of it. And, you know, this is what you're going to do, and your life's going to be miserable. You got a wife at home? Not anymore, you know, kind of thing. I mean, that's the way. And that wouldn't happen these days. When I was in, guys, they were starting at Fort Jackson to give people stress cards. I went to Benning for both my basic training and what's called OSA, One Station Unit Training. And that essentially is getting you trained for the infantry. So if you fail out of the pipeline, you'll end up somewhere. You'll end up in the 2nd Infantry Division in Korea. If you fail after Airborne, which is right after OSA, then you're going to end up in the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg anyway. Right? So it's like really easy just to shuffle you from the JFK Special Warfare Center to 82nd Airborne. Right? And I had a lot of friends, good friends, who were just like, look, I was not married at the time. I still loved Laura to death, but I just bounced. You know, I needed time. I needed to grow up a little bit. I was like, you know, seriously, I needed to grow a lot of it, and she knew that, you know. And I said, I'll be back. I'll come and get you. I'll be back. But basically,
you wrote me a beautiful letter.
I did. Don't you dare tell the world that letter. That's between us. It's a beautiful letter, though. It is. But in any event, I had friends that were just like, you know what? I miss my wife. I miss my kids. We're going to be gone for 6-9 months at a clip without seeing them, and then right back. Turns out a lot of people that happened to anyway, you know. So I know a lot of people that just like grab their bag in the middle of you know, SOPSI or something. SOPSI, Special Operations Preparatory and Conditioning. 18 X-rays got that before SFAS, which is selection. They got that because we were off the street, and it's like trying to give us a leg up. I would never join now, because I imagine everybody's probably got stress cards. At Fort Jackson, we called it Relaxing Jackson. We mocked them. You get you know what, drill sergeant, I need a minute. Let me put my thumb on the card. It's too red. See, it's too red. Cancel the shark attack. Give me a break. I'm going to tell that to the Chinese when they're steamrolling you? Hold on. Time out. My stress card's lighting up. No, that's not how it works. And also, and I'm very open to diversity of anything. My Krav Maga instructor was a female Israeli.
And
she'll kick the crap out of you. All right? I'm not kidding. I was like, this is incredible.
Not only was she good looking, but she
was good looking, and she whooped me, man. I couldn't believe it. I was like, damn. I thought I was and she just kept getting it. And it's like the Israelis, they teach you to end it real quick. In the army, they teach you like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's what they'll teach you first. It's not hand-to-hand stand-up anymore. It's basically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And to deal with it, try to be quick about it, right? But then they teach, if you go in the pipeline and beyond, they'll teach you different things, like Krav Maga. And the Israelis, man, they got that down to a science, Don. You are done in 2 or 3 strikes, and that's it. And it's because they have different combat situations they have to deal with the Palestinians and others around them. So they don't have time to like wrestle on the ground together. You could get stabbed from a random person in the crowd. You need to end that confrontation and end it quick. This girl was no joke. I will never forget her. And nasty, too. Screaming while she's kicking the crap out of you. You go running in and you try to throw a shot at her, man. And she comes in. All you hear is shouting. The fists go blazing. And you're down. I'm like...
But you also had a problem, like, trying to
whack a woman. Well, after the third time, I was like, okay. All right. Let's do this. And she still got me. Yeah. Because the point was... how you respond to that direct kind of strike, and that's what she was there for, and it was just
and not only
incredible.
That though, but it took you into a different scenario because women too
they fight in the Israeli army, or did back then. I don't know if I think they didn't they revoke that, Don?
Yeah,
they did, right? Well, back then they did, though.
You don't know who your threat is, and it can be a woman. Too.
Yeah. So
it had to take you out of that element where you. Because you could have died if you sat there and go, "Oh, it's a girl," and then,
that woman will kill you.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. A woman can kill you too. And anyway, my point is that I'm all for it. Her being Krav Maga instructor. However, there are certain things about certain special operations, particularly a Green Beret who is charged with. And you know this, your buddy's a Green Beret. They oppress all the beer, baby. Mm-hmm. You are to liberate the oppressed. And you're there to train people who are not able to defend themselves against a tyrannical force of some kind. So you're a force multiplier. I don't know how certain women are made to, not certain, women in general, how they're expected to deal in those prolonged conditions, Don. Not just because men are naturally and physically strong. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about women have cycles. There's just that's I don't want to get into too intimate here, but that could give you away, Don. It could give you away. There are animals out there, that people use to track you, and it's just. I suppose they can track anybody, but I'm just saying there's certain liabilities there that I really question. And now I know, by the way, when we were in the pipeline, SOPSI was 21 days, selection was 24 days, I believe. Now I had a buddy, he's old now, all of us, but he was like, dude, Bragg now is like 18 days, 19 days or something like that. And I don't know how you break someone in 18, 19 days. I just, if somebody really wants it there, they're going to be there 18 days, 24 days, 30 days. I just don't know how we minimize. What I'm worried about, to get to the heart of his question, is that you used to have to prove that you were the best and could stand with them, Don.
Right.
Now they're in an effort to be more inclusive. They are lowering the standards. And, the Army and other people are coming out and saying, no, we are not lowering the standards. Someone who passed selection today is just as, accomplished as someone who passed it 10 years ago, whatever it may be, 20 years ago. Don, come on.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And for my side of it, I guess I couldn't imagine what it's like today as a submariner, because when we were out at sea, we were out at sea for 3 months at a time. We pulled the plug, we went down, and we were out for 3 months, no communication with family or anything, but there were no relationships, because we were a bunch of guys. And so we were all married and all that stuff. Well, now they're integrated. So what does that throw into the mix? And you don't have time for mind games or relationships or issues or they're fighting now or they're. I couldn't even imagine having to juggle that. It was everything you could do to get. We lived in 18-hour rotating days, and out of that, you got 3-4 hours of sleep if you were lucky in that window. We were so busy, we had so much going on, and you had to be sharp, you had to be on everything that you were doing. And it was a serious deal. Those things are nuclear weapons, for crying out loud. It's a big deal. So I can't even imagine what that would be like today, to have all that stuff going on, and it's like, oh geez, they're fighting again. I don't know, that would be really difficult for me. I can't even fathom what it's like.
Yeah, I think, honestly, because I think about what you did, I may have a harder mental time on a submarine. I'm serious. Isolated like that,
surrounded by
feeling vulnerable, I guess, to some degree, than it is what I did. James Watson, he was a famous Navy SEAL with like Rick Marcinko's, and they called him Patches. He really took me under his wing when I was young, and his son was we fought together, like we were martial artists. And his son was a very good boxer, so like I wanted always full contact fight. And his son, also Jim, used to work on my hands, and I met him like that, So that's what I was doing when I joined the military, and the 9/11, and people wanted like revenge, And in any event, I'll never forget something he told me. He said, "The most vulnerable you'll ever feel is when you're in that helicopter, when you're getting ready to be moved or transported." And he wrote about it in a book too called Point Man, but I heard the story from the horse's mouth in Vero Beach, and he will never. He's gone now. God rest his soul. He passed away, but he basically said, that here they are in this helicopter taking small arms fire from the Viet Cong, and the helicopter's going down, and he's like, all this money, all this time, because they were he was SEAL Team 2, which technically was formed a couple hours before SEAL Team 1, because the West Coast versus the East Coast, right? And he basically was very proud of that he was one of the first SEALs ever. And him and Rick, they came up together. And he's like, and here I am, $1 million so-called super soldier about to die in a helicopter, and there's nothing I can do about it. Nothing. And they did go down, but he survived. Because people, once the helicopter goes down, it's a problem. All right. Yep. And he got taken out by small arms fire. And when the helicopter hits, the blades break. They cut through everything. It's horrible. And most of them pretty much walked out of there without a damn scratch. And he said, though, you will feel the most vulnerable in that helicopter. And I'll never forget holding one side with one hand, one side with the other, and going, I'm going to die in a freaking helicopter. I'm going to die in a helicopter, not even on the ground. He's got a whole heritage of fighting men, from all America's wars. And that's how he's going to go. And he's like, this is not good for the legacy. This is not good for the legacy. He was a great guy, man. He was something else. And they actually got me to stop smoking. I'll never forget. It was a Green Beret from Vietnam who was his buddy, and they used to come to Little Jim's Bridge and have this party of all these special operators. And, man, this guy came up to me, Don. I had a Marlboro Light hanging out of my mouth, and he was just like, whack, smacked it right out. He was like, every mountain you climb, every mile you swim or run, and every enemy you're trying to get away from, you're going to remember that Marlboro Light. He scared the crap out of me. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And I was, I went right with that. I had stopped. And that was it. And then I went in shortly after. But he was right, let me tell you. But he was young, and your lungs recuperate pretty quickly from that. I love to run, man, before my hip. I love to run. It was great. I felt it was liberating to me. Yep.
It is. It's a freedom.
You miss the Army and the Navy?
I don't miss it, but I loved the experience. And
Yeah.
so like I said, it would be different now, and I can't even fathom what that experience would be like in comparison. But it was a great experience. I worked with the best of the best, and
Yeah.
everybody was, it was a true A team. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot of things and pushed myself, challenged myself. You had to survive. So yeah, it was a great experience. But today, I don't know. I don't know if I could deal with, like I said, all that issues that would come along with the integrated thing. And you've already heard about problems with people taking pictures of, and a submarine is not built to have a women's locker room and a men's locker room. And
my friend. No.
It's just not. It's not built that way. So I think it would be a completely different experience. So I don't miss it. I cherish it, I guess.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's a good. You know,
miss your army.
I miss my army, right? And I had in the beginning, I had a very, very difficult time. So it's part of like, I felt like I got robbed, because it was like just enough to put me out, and I could, when I got home, I couldn't do the things I did before I got home, which really pissed me off. Yes. I couldn't get to fight. They wouldn't give me a license to fight, right? So it was just bad. But the camaraderie, Don, like you said, it was a real A team. The camaraderie and the friendship. I don't think you can find it outside in the civilian world unless you're veterans who bump into each other. I'm serious.
Yep.
And then you get it. You really do get it. But it's something to have to rely on another man. Or another group of people who are willing. Yes, it really is, man. And I love that Delta dude in Black Hawk Down, and I know one of the guys who was really like in Mogadishu, Cooper, and basically the Delta dude said it the best. He really did. It really is all about the guy next to you. Yeah. That's it. That's the best way to put it. I can't even put it. There's nothing to add to that. That's it, man. And that's. I guess I missed that. But is it now? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right, with that, it's 1:40. Holy moly. Crap. Yeah, let's get going. Tell everybody where to find you, Don, what to do, and what time is local? And what time?
No, local Zoom.
Well, I'll get to. I'll tell that after. Don, go ahead, buddy.
So, DonSmithShow.locals.com. My website is DonSmithShow.com. And we're on tomorrow at noon Eastern time. And it's going to be a great show. In fact, I'm sitting down here in about 20 minutes with Mark Mix. He is the president of the National Right to Work Foundation. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened in the Supreme Court yesterday, which is just insanity. If you haven't heard about this, the unions coming onto this farm and just harassing these people. And there's a law that protects them. Well, that's no longer. So great victory for non-union workers. I mean, everything doesn't have to be about union workers. So we'll have Mark Mix on. Of course, Rich will be on. We'll talk about great things. And I've got Lieutenant Colonel Ken Benway, who is the co-founder of Special Operations Speaks. We had him on our show last night for about 45 minutes with Dave Perkins, myself, on the conversation. So we'll play a little bit of that as well. I've got another in their own words on the voter ID laws. So and Peter Hussey. He's on to talk about national security stuff. So noon tomorrow, Eastern time. We're on every Saturday, but we're also on every Thursday night, Dave and myself, for the conversation. So hopefully you guys can join us and join us in the chat room. A lot of great chat goes on in there as well. And I think that's the great thing about your show here too. A lot of great chat happens. And sorry, N, I couldn't zip it, man. I don't tell you, bud. So so everybody join us, and hope you'll be there.
That sounds good. Thanks for joining us as always, my friend. I'll see you in a little bit. Let me know when you're done. I'm around. All right.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
We'll make
Bye,
the
Laura.
magic happen. All the best. Bye, Laura.
Bye, Don. Tell Brenda I said I love her and miss her.
Will do. Thanks, guys.
Take
Bye,
it
everybody.
easy, Don. See you soon.
See ya.
Don Smith, everybody. As always, thanks for joining the Q&A and hanging tight, man. We were at that for over an hour. So we'll work on the locals Zoom situation. Laura told me to address that. We'll work on that. When I get off of here right now, I was going to do the pre-tape, but it sounds like he's got something he's got to do. I'll wait till after that. That'll give me some more time anyway. I'm going to throw up the Georgia crosstab. And I want you to see this when you think about Merrick Garland suing the state of Georgia for this law. And I want you to see what people really wanted in that state. And their Republican governor and Secretary of State and their entire establishment apparatus already caved. And now, on most of it, now Matt got some good wins in that bill, but you'll see what people wanted.
Yeah.
And instead they expanded things people wanted restricted, you know. But in any event, I want you to look at that and check that out, because Republicans gave them an inch and now they're coming back for the whole foot. And that's a lesson that should be learned there, but they won't learn it. All right, follow me on Twitter at peoples_pundit, of course. And if you like this video, of course, hit that thumbs up button. They really do matter. If you don't like it, hit the thumbs down button. You still have a voice, right? And if you enjoy the shows and other shows we do, like What Are the Odds, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. And of course, the best way you can support the Public Polling Project, we can talk about building surveys. If you want to be intimately involved in that, join the locals community. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. I was going to put up North Carolina for you guys, but since we're talking about Georgia, maybe we'll revisit the Georgia voter analysis. I'll put that up first, and then by the end of next week, beginning of next week, we'll start to talk about North Carolina and around surrounding area. All right, all the best, folks. Have a safe weekend. See you soon.
Bye, guys. Love.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me.